Hello, hello. Welcome to the commentary track for Scream 2022. I'm James Vanderbilt, one of the writers and producers.
And I'm Guy Busick, the other writer.
I'm Tyler, one of the directors.
I'm Matt Bettinelli-Alpin, also one of the directors.
And I'm Chad Villella, executive producer.
So tell me, who is the Spyglass Man?
I believe you're the one who knows the answer.
I didn't know. I thought Tyler knew it.
No, I was asking if you knew.
Oh, I do. I thought you were leading me down the primrose path. It is an amalgamation, I believe, of Gary Barber and Roger Birnbaum, who founded the original Spyglass. It's one of their head, one's body and the other's head. I don't know which one is which.
There was an early pitch when we were, putting the fanfares on the front of the movie to have a silhouette of Ghostface run out and stab that man with the with the telescope.
You felt that would set the proper scary tone that you were shooting for the movie, is to have an animated Ghostface.
Yep.
That request was denied.
That was strangely...
Oh, no, that request never left the room.
I was going to say, because I would have denied that request immediately. So
Very subtle setup here of the inhaler.
Yes, very, very subtle. It's funny, actually. It doesn't feel like a plant to me. But you know.
No, it doesn't.
The way this sort of came about, just briefly, a little bit, was I had a meeting with Gary Barber along with William Sherrick and Paul Neinstein, who are my two partners, and Gary had just started this new iteration of Spyglass, and we had just started our new company, Project X, and we were talking about different titles that Gary had. And Scream came up, and I'm such an enormous Scream fan. I was just like, we would kill to do that. I would love to do that. And Gary was basically like, well, if you'll write it, I'll give it to you. And I was like, I'll write it. And he said, okay. And I said, okay. And we walked downstairs, and I looked at William and Paul. I was like, did we just get Scream? Like, it happened so quickly. And William and Paul had been talking to him about it before, but it just was like such a crazy... situations, the fastest I think anything's ever kind of happened to me in my career. And then I knew, because the speed of which he wanted to make the movie too, I knew I sort of didn't want to write it alone. I wanted to work with somebody who I knew could deliver and was as big a fan as I was. And so I called you up, Guy, and...
Yes, you did.
Did I ask you over the phone or in person?
Yeah, no, it was over the phone. So I remember this call very clearly. It's one of those phone calls that you don't forget. I was in New York with my wife on our anniversary, and it was our 10-year anniversary. And we were just getting out of a Broadway show, and I get a call. I think you had left a message during the show. It was like, hey, give me a call. And I was worried because we had several projects going on with these guys. And I was like, oh, which one fell apart?
Clearly bad news.
Yeah, something's up. And I'm like, I better return this call.
Like a perpetual crouch for bad news.
Oh, yeah. You have to be. So I was like, well, I guess we'll get this out of the way so I can ruin our night. And so I called him back, a little ways away from my wife on the sidewalk as we were about to get a cab. And he was like, so... no bad news on the other projects. By the way, would you like to write the next Scream with me? And I was like, yes. It was the easiest yes I've ever given. And I didn't tell Amanda because I was in a state of shock. And so she wanted to go to this tiki bar in Chinatown. And I was keeping this inside.
This poker face. Okay.
I looked like I'd, just received horrible news, probably, because my face was just a blank. And she was a little concerned.
Right.
So we went down to this, it's like a subterranean basement tiki bar that she was really excited to go to. And it was very, very cool. And I waited until, we had a table. And then I was like, I think I'm co-writing the next Scream movie? ? And she was like, what?
The phone call was legally binding.
Yes, absolutely, by the way. That was,
she flipped out. I finally flipped out. And then we celebrated. And it was a really wonderful night. So it's one of those nights I will never forget.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and from our point of view, we just knew that you guys were both working together on a super secret project that you could tell nobody about.
Yes.
And we didn't find out what it was until much later, and thankfully, we got to be a part of it.
We kind of honey-potted. We sort of, because my idea, we all made a movie called Ready or Not together that Guy co-wrote and these Radio Silence guys directed, which was just a great experience. And so when Scream came along, in my head, I was like, walking out of Gary's office, I was like, I want to write it with Guy. I want Radio Silence to direct it. But how can we reverse engineer that happening? And so I remember I think we set you up on a general with Spyglass. 'cause
Yes,
I was
which
like,
was so bizarre.
Yeah,
having
we
a
were like,
friend set
and we
up
had
a
told,
general.
yeah, we had told them. You should talk about that because we had told Gary we wanted you guys to do it.
Right.
So you were kind of interviewing to do the movie without knowing you were interviewing to do the movie.
Well, and
I
you
remember
set us
us
up.
daisy chaining in the car beforehand, and Jamie getting on the phone with us and giving us a pep talk.
Yeah, he was like the mighty
and we're like,
Boston hype man.
why are we getting a pep talk for a general meeting?
So you guys, be cool, just be
be yourselves,
yourselves,
be
be
yourselves.
nice,
Right.
be friendly.
going on?
It'll be totally cool. And then we got into the
Wear a
room,
button
and
down.
Gary is a big personality, and halfway through the meeting, he slipped that Jamie was busy writing Scream for him, and I wish we had a video.
There was
of
like
that,
a
'cause
record scratch in the room.
we all like lost our minds just because we were so excited that you were writing Scream. We didn't even realize, Guy, you were a part of it yet, and then we walked outside and we're like, wow, our friends are writing Scream.
Well, and I remember getting on the elevator, and we were sort of connecting the dots of like Jamie set up this weird general with Gary. He gave us this bizarre pep talk.
I, for the
We
record,
find
was
out
not
about
connecting these
Scream.
dots. You were connecting.
And I
those
was like,
dots.
there's no way that, and we put it out of our heads because it was like, no, we can't, let's not go there. We'll be so disappointed. Like, let's not get our hopes up. And then it was, a week later, we
week
got
later.
the call. You guys should come in and read the script. We want you to do it.
I was gonna say we had a script at that
Yeah,
point.
we'd written
Yeah.
the whole movie because they didn't want to. Spyglass didn't want to start looking for directors until they had a script. So Guy and I had spent months kind of just. Although we wrote it pretty quickly. Like I don't want to.
We spent, I'd say, a couple months with the outline.
Yeah.
And it was a really, really detailed outline.
Yeah, it was
I've
super
never
detailed.
seen an outline that detailed.
Yeah.
By the time you had your assistant put it into final draft,
Yeah.
it was like 70 pages.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, it was great.
The
It was-
script was mostly written,
Yeah.
honestly, and,
Yeah.
and so it took us like two and a half weeks to actually finish the script.
to whack it into some kind of shape.
As soon as we figured out what it wanted to be,
Yeah.
and what the roles were for the legacy characters, and what the right ratio was for the three storylines, it was just like shot out of a cannon.
Yeah, it was. This is sort of one of the fastest kind of scripts I've ever sort of been a part
Same.
of. So like it just kind of it sort of came out fully. We can talk about a little bit about it later, but like
Yeah.
it came out sort of fully formed in terms of what we wanted to do with it. But I remember we were so super scared about anything leaking that we wouldn't email the script to anybody. And so I remember you guys literally was like, you have to come to the office,
Right,
and
yeah. Hard copies.
We're going to print you each a hard copy, and we're basically going to lock you in a room, and you can't leave with it. And Rebecca shredded them afterwards too. And I just remember being because I was there. I remember being terrified because you were just in this room for 3 hours and like.
You kept popping your head in. You
I
were doing a real
I
slow
tried
read.
not to, but like
It
I
was a
remember
real
like
slow read.
you guys would like one of you would go to the bathroom and be like, hey, how you doing? How's it going? And then we'd all turn and be like, did they look like they were enjoying it on the way to the bathroom? Are they thinking about it? Are they moving? Is he moving? Are they running? Are they trying to get back to the script quick, or are they taking their time? Like, what is?
Is he stopping
we were
for a
terrified.
snack?
We took our time with the script. We were reading it in like slow mo and really letting it sink in, And honestly, it's crazy how little actually changed.
Yeah.
That wasn't production related. I mean,
Did you
we
guys-
obviously had production related changes, but that was about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very, very similar to the early draft.
Yeah.
And I was gonna mention here this scene is the first scene that was written.
Yep.
Jamie took the first pass at it, and then I got to play around with it a little bit. And this was the first scene shot.
It was the first scene shot, but weirdly,
And one of the last.
And the
it got split because of COVID, the C word.
Yeah.
We ended up punting a day to the end of the schedule, which honestly is such a huge testament to Jenna that she had all this scene just so in her head. We showed up to pick up what we'd missed from it and just clicked right back in.
You guys shot this scene pretty much sequentially, right?
Yes.
So like
100%.
So is the break?
It was before the
Is
attack,
it before?
right?
It's before she gets back into the kitchen.
It's when she's in the kitchen before she gets thrown on the floor.
Right.
That's all
But stunt work.
stunty stuff after, yeah. And
Right.
so at the end of the day where we knew we were shutting down, we basically spent 5 hours shooting
Yeah,
all
it
the
was a
phone
lot.
inserts.
Yeah.
Which
I remember that.
Yeah.
took a ton of time,
Yeah,
and
we really wanted to do those as practically as possible. We didn't want to have green screen. We didn't want to do an insert unit. We wanted that to be Jenna's hand, Jenna's phone
Yeah.
in the location where she was, looking at the phone. 'Cause
We
it's
should
like,
also
that's great
just
continuity there.
talk about how incredible
I
Jenna
was
is
just
in
gonna
this scene.
mention
I mean,
that.
she just like we would shoot the whole scene for like the wides and the follows, we'd shoot it just the whole 10-minute scene, and she would be perfect every single time.
The other two things I want to mention. One is the beginning of this scene. She's 17 years old.
Yes.
And which meant you had to wrap at midnight, right?
Exactly.
You couldn't shoot as long as you needed to.
And not a minute over midnight.
And then she turned 18 that weekend.
Yeah.
And so right now she's 18, I believe.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
She's 18
She's
and
18 in a couple months.
And the other crazy thing is because of COVID, like a lot of the auditions were all on Zoom, and I remember her audition. I think she did a chemistry read with Melissa because Melissa had already been cast, and it was like. I remember, like, the night before, we're like, do you want to, like, there was a scene where we were like, hey, do you want to see if she wants to just maybe try the phone call? Which is, like, 6 pages of dialogue just on your own. And she, like, read it that morning.
It was perfect.
And she was like, let me just take a whack at it. I'm not really off book. And she was totally off book. And she did the whole fucking phone call.
We were all totally blown away
insane.
by that. And I was lucky enough to get to see the tape too.
Yeah.
But until you see the dailies, you just never know. And it was seeing these, filmed first. It was like, oh, what? We are in such good hands. She's incredible. She's just amazing.
Can I ask a quick question about the writing? Because the 2.5 weeks is just an insane. That's so fast to get a draft done. As fans, had you ever in your minds thought, man, if I was involved in a Scream movie, this is how I would approach the story. This is how I would tell. Was there anything that it was sort of built up in you guys creatively and in how to approach this that found its way into the project?
I mean, I never sort of thought about it until I was in the lobby of. I was
Really?
like, oh,
Yeah.
like I never was like, because I just never thought it was a possibility, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I'd always loved these movies so much, and I think once we started talking, one of the coolest things, honestly, was because the first thing we did is we went back and we watched all 4 movies
Together,
and we kind of didn't tell each other sort of, oh, I think we should go this direction, I think we should go that direction. We kind of just separately made notes, and then we sat down and we're like, what about this? What about that? What about this? And the crazy thing was 90% of the stuff we suggested the other person had also thought of. It was like the idea of doing an opening where the character lived, we both
we
had
had
thought
that,
of.
yep.
The idea of using Stu's house in the 3rd act, we both thought of.
Yeah,
Like,
and we had the same idea for Dewey. I think we knew that Sydney was going to be happy.
Yeah.
She was going to have, escaped all of this. I think we wanted Gail to get back to her,
Yeah.
roots and be successful and not in Woodsboro. We both knew that they'd be split.
Yep.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was
Yeah, it was
weird.
really sort of kismet-y. Like,
Yeah.
And so and we both. It's weird to talk about it because I haven't talked about it anyway. But we both were like, Dewey can't
Dewey
make
has-
it.
has
Dewey's
to
got to
die.
go. Which
Oh,
is,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We both were pretty early. We're
Well,
convinced of that.
it was a really odd conversation because we agreed immediately that one of the legacy
Had to
would
go.
have to go
Yeah.
because otherwise it just get it does,
Yeah.
it's
No stakes.
Ritchie does kind of speak for the cynical part, the business side part of us.
The cool thing about this movie too is the subtext can become the text.
Yes.
So
Right.
a lot of the conversations we had about what this should be and requels and stuff like that is what Mindy says.
Yeah, you put in the characters'
and,
mouths.
and
That's
then
interesting.
all the stuff with Ritchie at the end is like talking about stakes is clearly the conversation.
The conversations we had.
Watch everything get worse.
Listen, all I'm saying is with everything going on.
I think it's, I don't want to say it was by process of elimination because it wasn't, but it sort of felt like what's the best way to use these legacy characters going forward? Because one of the things, and I love all of the movies, but I think one of the only issues I ever had with Scream 4 is it feels a little bit like they're all kind of playing still the same people they were in high school. And we got really excited about the idea of what if we actually embrace the fact that 10 years have passed? Like 10 years older, like you're in a different place in life. And so the idea of giving, and also we didn't know if we could get these actors back, which was a big piece of concern for everybody. It was like, what if, and it was sort of like, we got to give them new stuff to play. Like we have to kind of, the idea was, Nev Campbell's never going to say yes to a Scream movie without reading it, and certainly without Wes being there. So that was a huge kind of hurdle in all of our minds. So we're like, we just have to try and make it so good that they'll want to come to the party
Yeah, it's undeniable.
and be a part of it. And I do remember, by the way, I remember you guys calling me at one point before even David had signed on, and you guys were like, we want to do it, but like,
Yeah.
you're gonna get those actors right, because if you don't get those actors, like, I don't want to, and so we all sort of. I do remember Gary Barber being like, well, if we don't get any of them, you can still make the movie, right? I was like, absolutely, no question, totally. And then Seeger like, we gotta get these fucking, we have to get them all
Playing
back.
chicken with yourself.
Oh my God, yeah.
We were. It was the same way with you guys in a way. It was like,
Yeah.
oh sure, yeah, there's a backup. There was no backup.
There was no backup plan.
We,
There was
it
no
had to
list.
be you guys. So yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank
for
you for
coming
saying-
aboard.
thank you for saying yes.
Thank you
No,
for
I think that's
saying-
kind of an important part of the process is when you know there's an easier when you give yourself an easy out.
Yeah.
A lot of the times you'll take it. It's,
You don't commit.
You have to aim for the thing you want.
Yeah.
By the way, just while we're on this cast,
Yeah.
this Rich D'Elia, our casting
Oh.
director, just knocked it out of the park with all of the new cast. I mean, they were incredible to work with, and they're just so good in the movie.
So good. Yeah, I think the first couple of scenes I took a whack at were introducing Sam and Richie, and then introducing the kids.
Yeah, you did the first pass of that.
We
Yeah.
had figured out even some of the dialogue just between the two of us during the brainstorming outlining phase, so I had a lot to go on. But dialing in on the specific voices was super fun,
Yeah.
and I immediately took to Mindy. Mindy was like,
Yeah.
I named Mindy after my cousin Mindy, and it just sounded like Randy in a way. It was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Randy Meeks, and it just kind of was like, oh, that's a perfect name. And I just had such an affinity for the Randy character, and how to update that, and then find a very specific thing, like a subgenre of Randy that we haven't seen. This woman with no filter, who's like not afraid to say something shocking, to try to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
And just the way she'd point a finger at everybody, it was just so much fun to write. And I was going to say, Liv originally wasn't going to be that major of a character.
No.
It was just Chad's girlfriend. And it wasn't that we were going to kill her off early or anything, but it was like, oh, well, there's so much story of service. To talk about that for a second, we have 3 storylines here. We
Yep.
have Sam and Richie are their own story. Then you have the kids, which are their own story, and then you have the legacy cast, which are their own story. That's never happened in a Scream movie. It's never been more than, like, Scream 4 had two storylines, but this has 3. And so it was like, do we have the real estate for this many kids, this many high schoolers?
Yeah.
And then we just kind of were like, Liv is so fun to write, and Chad, having her as a foil to Chad, and having this little, C plot of Chad wanting to sleep with her, and her, her being resistant, and then turning the tables in the finale. It was just like, this is a really fun character. So we built her out from there.
That also, she also sort of felt like an homage to Sydney in the just in terms of the are
Yes,
you going to have sex or
exactly,
you're not going to have
yeah.
sex in high school kind of thing.
The Billy and Sid thing.
Yeah, which
totally.
was it's just a great group of actors. Like we got
So lucky.
to, and they're all excited to do it and be in a Scream movie. Like I think they all sort of like embraced,
Oh, so genuine. Their love of these
Yeah.
movies.
which is amazing.
Real quick shout out to
Yeah.
our production designer Chad Keith, who
Yeah.
we built this floor of a hospital that pops up a few times in the movie, and it was kind of we had rooms that could be used on both sides, so it didn't feel like we were in the same space the entire time. But it was a big set. I think the hallway was 160 feet
160,
long.
yep.
Oh my God.
And there were three or four functional rooms off of the sides of the hallway. Spent a lot of time here.
I just want to really quickly talk about, because you talk about sort of how quickly you write a script and stuff like that. We named Tara after Tara Farney, who had worked on Ready or Not with. And it was one of those things too where it's like, oh, we'll just call these characters these characters. We'll change it later.
change 'em later.
We named Chad after Chad Villella.
Yeah.
We're like, clearly we're going to change that, and we're not going to have a character named after one of the people making the movie.
Right.
It's
stuck.
But then the other one is Amber is named after my wife.
Including her maiden
Last
name.
And including her last name, Amber Freeman. So my wife, for years, has always given me shit that I've never, like, I try and work my brother's name into movies, Travis, like, I try and work a bunch of different names. And I'm always like, well, it has to feel like the right character. So she's given me shit forever for not naming a character after her. So I was sort of like, with this, I was like, oh, you want me to name a character after you? I'm gonna name a character after you because she's going to be the killer. And we did it. We wrote it in the script. And at a certain point in time before I was going to not tell her. It was like be a surprise, like a kind of a fun thing. And I had this moment where I was like, oh, I really better ask her if it's okay that forever her name will be associated with a ghost face,
A psycho killer.
like killer. And I went to her and she was like, yeah, that's totally, that's super cool. But yeah,
Very
there's,
romantic.
And you set her on fire.
You know, I didn't set her on
shot her in the head.
I didn't set her on fire. That's Gail and Sydney's doing. I can't listen. I can't. You know, I just create these characters. I don't make. They're
speaking
They
through
become
you.
to life on their own. Please.
I don't fucking care who you're talking to.
Let's go.
Don't you fucking talk to her. I don't want to fucking hear your goddamn voice.
Better shut the fuck up.
Get out of here. I'm calling the cops.
Honestly, one of the nerdiest things that we got super excited about was this idea of the third act
Let's go.
is a wake for Wes Craven. The idea of all the characters coming together to celebrate the life of someone named Wes and literally doing a cheers to it, and we'll get to it later. But you guys, just talk about it now because I don't want to forget it when we get to it. But you guys went out and got
Yes,
all
so
of the
many,
actors, yeah.
all the legacy cast from the original came back and are part of that toast. Drew Barrymore, I mean, we even have Marco Beltrami, Wes's widow, Patrick Lucier's editor. Jamie Kennedy has some voice work. Matthew Lillard pops up multiple times.
We already heard
in
Drew
ADR.
Barrymore was the high school announcement at
Yes.
the beginning of the class.
Right.
the
So not
students.
only in the toast, but they are sprinkled
Throughout.
throughout.
Get out of my fucking car!
that Henry Winkler is part of the 2S toast.
Yeah.
So I love the
Yes.
idea that like somewhere in the back of this party is like a 75-year-old man.
And Hayden too. Hayden Panettiere.
Hayden is in there, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
We should say too, this is one of this bar scene. Originally, this was one of the discoveries we made in the edit. This was Dewey's introduction
Yeah.
originally. He pops up in the bar and he and Kyle Gallner's character Vince get into a scuffle, and it was one of those moments where, thankfully, I think you guys had written sort of two beautiful intros for him, right? One in this moment where he kind of steps in to save the day, but is too drunk to kind of ultimately be effective, and then you meet him at the trailer later in a quieter moment, and both of them were such wonderful intros. And I think what we discovered was getting to him a little bit later allowed us to really live with this new cast of
Yeah.
characters for a while and really build them out and really make it feel like Sam and Tara's story. And it was a change that was hard to make, but now it's hard to imagine what
Yeah.
the movie
Yeah.
would be, with that moment. in it.
And it was a really well acted, well directed scene, and there's also another scene with Dewey and Marley Shelton together in the sheriff's station.
Yeah, which are
is
both
great.
on the special features.
That's
thankfully,
great.
those
They do sort of
deleted
great
scenes.
work. It just again,
Yeah,
it sort of
great
felt.
work.
It kind of was like you wanted. What sort of became clear, I think, a little bit is you just want to tell the story. It's Sam and Tara's story, and anytime we kind of deviated from that. Oh, sorry.
Here we go.
Here's what to talk about.
This.
So
Nobody knows he's in the movie.
I was going to say,
I
we
know.
should say that when we're recording this, we don't know if people hate this or like this.
Yes.
yeah, fingers crossed.
This was
So-
our big swing.
This was one of the two things I was going to talk about real quick.
Yeah.
The Dewey introduction. One of the first things that got me really excited, and I think both of us, was the idea of Dewey as Quint from Jaws. Yeah, the old,
little bit, yeah.
the old grizzled, like, oh, I'll tell you
Yep.
a story. I'll tell you what it's really like. That and this. This was like, what if we brought back Skeet?
Yeah.
And it wasn't just what if we brought back Billy by name only, or
Yeah.
this is his illegitimate daughter, which was another thing we both thought of independently.
Yeah, we did.
Was that the lead should be
Billy's daughter.
Billy's daughter.
Yeah.
And then it was like I think we pulled up some like what's Skeet up to?
Yes.
And we were like,
What does he
I wonder,
look like?
is he available?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
And
it was
it was like, oh fuck it, let's just write it.
It was it was sort of the big swing for the script, and also I remember when we sat down, and we should talk a little about Kevin Williamson and how wonderful
Yes.
he was through this entire process. But
Come and get
after
me.
sort of trying desperately to convince him to get on board because he was done with this franchise, and obviously had not had a great experience with the Weinsteins. So to get him to actually come back and be a part of this and bless this and give us notes and tell us you're doing this, not so much, this is great, go more here. But one of the things he said was, with the Billy thing, he was like, it's the one piece of this movie that doesn't feel like a Scream movie, and I think that's why you have to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Which
You know,
is great.
which I thought was such a great, like, take the swing. Like, don't just try and recreate what's come before.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot lately, how one of the things that Scream does in its DNA is set up the kind of idea that it has to continually change in order to be good, and it has to kind of push those boundaries. And obviously the Billy swing is the biggest one in this.
Yeah.
We also shot all that Billy stuff green screen. That was the other kind of crazy
last day
component
of
in all
shooting.
of this.
Yeah.
He came in for one day. You know, so there was this level of faith I think we all had in it working that we didn't ultimately know how it would feel until really we got the final VFX shots in and we de-aged him a few years. Like there were a lot of question
Which wasn't
marks.
part of the original plan.
No, it wasn't.
That was William.
Or the original budget, by the way.
Right.
Yes,
That's
and
true.
that
That is very
You
true.
know, William, when we were in post, was like, I'm gonna just see what happens if we de-age this, and he had, you know, had the foresight to have gotten all of this stuff when we were whiskeyed in Wilmington. And I mean, honestly, you know, I think we all saw it and instantly were in.
Yeah.
We should
Yeah, it
also
looks
jump back
great.
for a second and just say that in the scene where Jack's watching Stab, that's kind of the beginning of setting up this like underlying Stab theme that runs through the whole thing that pays off in the end. And you can, if you listen, you can hear Heather Graham.
Yeah.
Later, during Mindy watching it, you can hear the whole Dewey Gale scene, taking their like romantic walk, and there's like this subtext of Stab through the whole thing that I think you guys built in really, really well to kind of make the whole movie click in that big finale.
Just really quickly, like one of the things that Guy and I, from the jump, were like, because we were kind of putting this together in a post-Halloween 2018 world, which is a great, fun movie, and they did such a great thing. But we sort of were like, we kind of like rebelled against the whole like pick 'em and choose 'em. This sequel counts, this one doesn't. Terminator, like only 1 and 2 count with Dark Fate. But we were like, everything's canon, everything's in, and that's super fun. Like we both were like, let's bring back Judy Hicks. Fuck yeah! Like let's like.
Yeah, we had a wish list.
Yeah,
really.
we had
It
a
was-
wish list of like
Heather
everything
Matarazzo.
we wanted to tell. Yeah, Heather
Heather,
Matarazzo.
yeah.
It's like, let's not do the thing where only the first movie counts or only the, you know what I mean? So that was super exciting to us. And then kind of bringing that together with this idea of, and obviously Jack is very, you know, Jack's character Richie is very familiar with the Stab movies, but I did love this idea of somebody, because in these movies, everybody knows these movies, like they're the biggest movies. I sort of love the idea of one character being like, what fucking franchise? What are you talking about?
But of course, he ends up being the
He
expert.
learns, yeah. So we had our cake and eat it too. But I love the idea of a character. I think even before we knew that character would be the killer, we just love the idea of somebody learning about the franchise they're in as they go and getting progressively more creeped out and going, oh fuck, like we're gonna die. Like this is terrible.
And in classic Scream fashion, commenting on number 5, it goes off the rails with our movie being number 5, and like everyone talking. I mean, like obviously the big conceit of this movie that we're kind of tackling is toxic fandom, and once we figured that out, everything clicked into place.
Yeah.
Because you know, Scream is such a meta experience, and you kind of have to take into account, you know, what's going on in movies, what's going on in horror movies specifically, and what's going on with the fandom. And that has changed so much in the last 10 years. Like the way that studios and productions interact with the fans, and the fans having taken this ownership of certain franchises and feeling betrayed on a personal level if the next installment doesn't deliver what they want. It was like we have to address that in some way. So as soon as we kind of figured out that's what the motive is, it's like I've been betrayed by the Stab franchise, and I need to get it back on track because it's so fucking important to me. It's my identity, and it just became fun. It was like, this is taken, you know, it's taking a real life thing to the extreme. What if I'm going to start killing people to give new source material for Hollywood because they're totally bankrupt and out of ideas, which is the thing you see all the time, which, you know.
And I think, Guy, I think that was you. I think you were the one who's like, I think the why now is the toxic fandom piece. And as soon as we got that, it was like, oh, yes, that's why you make this movie in 2022.
It was like a lightning bolt, and I texted it to you, and you were on your way to meet Kevin.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And I was like, what about toxic fandom? And that was your first meeting with Kevin. I hadn't met him yet. And it went well, but he was still not committed because, you know, he had been so burned, as you said. And then we had that second coffee with him.
Yeah.
And it was just a dream come true. He was just so gracious and supportive and encouraging. And at that point, I think he had agreed to come on board.
Yeah, so he just really quickly, he had met me. I'm just going to tell you a quick Kevin Williamson story. So when I sold my first script in LA in like 1999, you go on these general meetings and you go meet, when you're a baby writer, all the CEs, the creative executives, sort of the lowest executives at big production companies. And at the time, Kevin had just signed like a $20 million deal with Merrimack. He was the biggest writer in town. It was between Scream 2 and Scream 3. And I went to meet at his company, and he was in the meeting, which never happens. And then he started quoting lines of my script to me. And I was like, oh, you've read it? And he was just the nicest, most amazing guy. And I never forgot that experience with him. And then so cut to 20 years later, and I call his agent and I said, I'd love to take him to lunch and just tell him why I really want him to be involved in this. And he's, and so Kevin came and had lunch with me. And I said, you're not going to remember this, but we met once. And he goes, oh, yeah, no, you wrote Independence, Mississippi. You came in. You had that character who did it. And he quoted more lines to me. Like, it's the craziest thing. And he, at the end of the lunch, was basically like, thank you so much. This is not going to work out, probably, but you're so kind, and I wish you all the best. And then I talked to him again on the phone. And then his agent called me and said, look, it's just too much water under the bridge. He's not. He thinks you're great. He thinks everybody's great. He wishes you all the best. He's not going to do it. And I said, okay, that sucks. That's, I get it, but I get it. And please thank him for his time. He's still, a hero of mine. And then that night, or either that night or the next night, I get a call from Kevin personally. It's like 8:00 at night. And we have an hour and a half long conversation, which was really, and he got really emotional and and at the end he says, will you dedicate the movie to Wes? And I said, of course, and I'm ashamed we didn't even, it's like we're doing all of this for Wes and stuff, but actually putting a dedication on the movie, that's a great idea. Absolutely. And he was a little teary, and he said, okay, I'll do it. And that's how he came into it, just knowing that we had so much respect and love for what he and Wes had created. And here's Dewey Riley.
I want to really quick, that scene, the confession scene between Sam and Tara, that was also a moment, I think, for us where what the movie was and could be really came into focus early. That was a chemistry read, that scene between Jenna and Melissa.
Yeah.
And another weird, awkward Zoom where it was casting director, all of us, and the two of them in different parts of the world. We all shut our videos off, and the two of them read that scene. And the amount of feeling that we got under those conditions, it just felt like, oh fuck, this is everything came into focus.
Well, we were all texting each other.
Yeah.
10
holy
seconds in.
Holy shit.
Wow, we've got a movie.
Yeah.
And wasn't that the first thing that Melissa shot? The confession scene?
No.
It wasn't? Oh, I thought it was.
Bowling Alley, I think, was, right?
No, her first scene. No, it wasn't the bowling alley. God, I can't remember.
We got
I really thought it was that because I was like, really? They're starting with that? Wow.
No, it wasn't the confession because the confession scene was an interesting thing to, and I don't think this is talking out of school, but she had a little trouble clicking on it for the first few takes. And then, just with a little work, she fully clicked into it. So what you're watching is basically all one take. There's no,
that's crazy.
We're not going from take to take on that. That's just her. And we were under the gun a lot on this. Like it's, it's a big movie, but it's also, it still felt a lot like Ready or Not, where we were kind of getting the take and then moving on. And that was one where that was her last take. And we all were like, oh, she fucking nailed it. We got it. We can move on.
Wait, was the first thing we shot with her coming into Tara's hospital room? Because what I remember of it is like Melissa came in, and then as soon as that scene was over, it was the first thing we did with the group. Dylan went up to Tara, to Jenna, and was like, it was so great working with you. And that was the only scene they had together. And then he was like bouncing.
That's crazy.
They had one scene together.
We're like, we're just starting.
And Dewey only has no scenes with Nev, which is a bummer.
No, that was something.
But their phone call, which is about to come up, was, they did that 2 weeks apart, and the emotion that they both brought to it was just incredible.
Yeah, not reading opposite each other.
Yeah,
it was just a AD,
just Nick
on the other end.
I want to say just about David too. Like he really embraced this in a way that he didn't necessarily have to, because he loves playing this character, and so. I remember when we sent him the script, I was like, just make sure you tell him that he dies before he reads it. I don't want him to get I don't want him to get to that scene and be unprepared for it. And I remember you guys can probably speak to this more than I do, but he always wanted to do it, and he was always game, and he was the first one of the legacy characters to sign on, which was great. And I think if he hadn't, I don't think the other two would have been as interested in doing the movie. But he once he got his head around the fact that this was going to be Dewey's exit, and that Dewey was in a, because he loves Dewey, so he doesn't like that Dewey's suffering, and you know what I mean, like. But once he got there, he was like, all right, if we're going to do this, let's go for it. Like, and I think that's he's such a good actor, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, and I think it was really personal. I think that this version of Dewey, he felt really connected to, as an older actor, as someone who's, lived some life. He's obviously had a really, interesting, nuanced conversation with Courtney, and their relationship is so tied up in these movies. And it felt to us like there was just this feeling of just real personal connection to where Dewey was at that, he totally embraced, and I think you really see it in every moment. I mean, he's so wonderful in this.
Are we not going to talk about the theme song we wrote for Gail's?
Oh, I mean, how much time do we have?
Was that you? Was that not a Brian Tyler special?
That is a garage band.
Oh, I love
Radio
it.
silence special.
I love that.
This was our first day of shooting with Neb. This is the first thing she shot. And honestly, we met her in person the night before, maybe?
Wow.
2 nights before?
Yeah.
And just talking about process a little bit, we didn't initially have this, we didn't know how to bring Sid into the story.
That was a big thing.
For a couple of weeks when we started this. And we had to bring them in organically. We had to bring them in one at a time in a way that made sense.
We sort of went, she'd never go to Woodsboro.
She would never go there. There would be no reason. And so at one point, I think we had Sam and Richie going to visit her wherever she lived now. And it was like, that doesn't feel right. We've already done that with
we never wrote that.
We never wrote that. No, it was just brainstorming. But the early days. But it was like the only thing that could get Sydney back to Woodsboro is Dewey's death, which originally was going to be in the third act.
In the third act, yeah. We had talked about. We knew we wanted him to go out heroically. We knew two things. We knew that we wanted Dewey to go out heroically, and we knew that we needed to get Sydney back to Woodsboro. And for some reason, for a while, those lived in two separate buckets.
Yeah.
And then finally, it was like, because we were so like, we wanted Dewey in as much of the movie as possible because we love David and we love Dewey. And finally, I think it was like, one of us said, what if we kill him off earlier? And that's the thing that brings her back. And I think that's the thing that let us go to script. It was like, that was the click where we went, oh, that makes sense.
Because we knew how to bring Courtney back, Gail.
Yeah.
That wasn't hard. She's concerned about Dewey. And she's going, the excuse is my producer sent me because I've covered Ghostface before. But yeah, she's concerned about Dewey.
Yeah. Everyone's concerned about Dewey.
Let me ask you guys a question. When you were just starting it, were you more focused on the new characters or the old characters?
I think both.
I think equally.
We were really focused on the new characters, and we both very early were like, we need to keep the legacy characters off screen for a while. Mm-hmm. Because if you open this movie with one of them, then Sam shows up and you're like, yeah, whatever, new girl.
Totally.
Like, I want to get back to Sid. And so we sort of knew that they had to drive the plot in order to give the audience enough time to come get. By the way, I love that you guys made Gail his
only
favorite. It's so
that was a real
sweet.
game time decision. I remember on the day us being like, should he have
You called
others?
me. That's right.
Yeah, we called you and
me
asked.
and I was like, no, that's great. I love that. And that's a real picture of their marriage.
The Tatum there was important to us.
Guy was like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she's never been referenced after the first film.
The killer references her in 3.
In 3.
Pretending to be Dewey.
And, but in terms of him,
yes,
we've never seen him really deal with the death of his sister, and it's almost like it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So
wait, sorry. Dewey's theme.
Oh yes, we should talk about this.
Sorry. This is the biggest nerding, annoying thing I did in this movie was there's a piece of music from Scream 2, which is actually not written by Marco Beltrami, who's an amazing composer, but was written by Hans Zimmer because it played so well in a test screening when they temped it. I think Bob Weinstein was just keep it in there, but it's this beautiful guitar piece that's actually from Broken Arrow. Yeah. And my one thing with Brian Tyler was like, I don't understand how the rights work, but we have to have that sting for Dewey in this movie at this place. And I sort of feel like every few weeks the studio yeah. I was like, no, you don't understand.
Yeah, we kept checking in on it to make sure it was happening.
This is a line in the sand for me. So
Oh, there's Heather.
Heather. She
Yes.
walks in, steals the show, and walks right out.
That was when we were doing our first watch of the other four. That was one of the first things we wrote down. Was like, we have to bring back Heather Matarazzo. She's such a delight. And then seeing the dailies of this day was such a treat because she's so funny and she played it differently every time.
Yep.
It was just wow.
She
We're
had
so
a
lucky.
blast out there.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, she was just up for anything and was like, what can I do? Let's make this fun. And just totally got it.
And she also, because of COVID, right, like had to be there for a week
Yeah.
before
On
shooting
Right,
one
it was like
day.
a 5-day quarantine.
Yeah.
This was also David's first scene that we shot with him, which was really interesting. That the only person he knew and was familiar with was Heather, and everyone else around him was unfamiliar. And you can kind of feel that he's the odd man out in this scene.
I remember watching them, the whole cast during the shooting though, and seeing them all loosen up, and everybody here feels a little starstruck by David because David's David, and just seeing this is when it starts to really meld. And one of the things David brought to set was like this. He was able to tell us all the stories of the original, and it was really like kind of sitting around a campfire a lot of the time, and we really would try to imbue that into this.
That cut deep line, that's a David improv that we just fell in love with so quickly.
I wanted to also give credit to Jack for shitty Sam Elliott. That was an improv.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Oh, and sorry, we passed it, but one of my favorite moments of Jack is when they open the door to Dewey's trailer. You never see it the first time.
Oh, God.
But the first time he sees Dewey,
Yes.
he is so starstruck. Oh my God, this is one of the people from the original Stab. Like he is not
right.
playing it cool as Richie. He is totally the killer at that point in time.
And that's something that we did with Jack on in every scene. There were takes where you are the killer, you are the fan, you are innocent boyfriend, so that we could kind of have our mix and match in the end. And that one that you're talking about was the one that Jack was the most excited about. Is I'm just starstruck.
Yeah.
I'm just starstruck.
We talked a lot about, and Kevin did it. I think Kevin said it was like, these movies aren't about ruling people in or ruling people. How did he put it? Like there was a great way to put it where it's like everyone has to be able to actually be a suspect.
Yeah,
right?
everyone's
a
guilty.
suspect.
Everyone's guilty until proven innocent. So don't worry about if you think it's too, like you go back and we talked about this. You go back and watch the original Scream. Skeet and Matthew Lillard are so obviously the killers and with hindsight. But you just don't see it because of the way the thing's structured. But the performances, that's why when you get to the end of it, it feels real because it's been in front of you the whole time.
And it's part of why it's so rewatchable and so fun to go back, because you go like, oh my God, all these little things, like they're telling us exactly what's happening and we're not paying attention, which is great.
And I think Jack and Mikey are doing the same thing in this. Like she is so obviously like this dark, and he is so in the other way, sort of playing it like wide-eyed, I'm so innocent, I'm a little jackrabbit, and it's like, of course that guy's the killer.
Well, they were so funny too. Before we shot, the two of them got together a couple of times, and then they got together separately with us. And they had built out, like they had written a text chain between them that happened on a Stab forum. Jack actually created a username and was posting on Scream forums as Richie.
Yeah.
And I mean, they really took it seriously. They wanted to build a history between the two of them, and we're so grateful for it, because I think you do feel that level of kind of sinister connection between the two of them once the context of them being the killers.
So to be super clear, if you go to the Scream Reddit right now, there are posts that Jack Quaid made in character.
As Richie, yes.
Stabhead, right?
Stabhead,
Yeah, Stabhead.
Stabhead, Scream Reddit.
So that's the level of commitment.
Also, Jasmine, just in this scene, this was, this is her big scene, and I mean, she tried a whole bunch of different things, and she just eats it up. I mean, she killed it.
And it's like a two-pronged monologue. It's like you have one monologue and then you go into another one when it's about requels. First it's about like what is the movies can be important to you, and then it's like what the hell is a requel? She's got two big chunks to memorize, and she just nails them both.
Yeah.
And she's that character too that I think she's she's sort of making fun of the fans, but she's also one of those fans, which is weirdly, I think, one of the things we loved about the script and this idea of toxic fandom is, we're fans as well.
Oh my God,
You know,
yeah.
that there's a real personal connection. We've all had the experience of watching something that we want to love and we just can't get there. And we loved the idea of you guys just amplifying that, turning the volume up on that, and making it really, really dangerous.
Well, and we would talk a lot about when we were shooting and all through post, all 5 of us would, about how it's meta upon meta upon meta,
Oh my
because
God.
we're literally fans making a fan film based on movies we love. It just keeps going.
Yeah. And the villains are, the villains are fans as well. So it's
Yes.
that thing too, where it's like the most meta moment I had on this was the line in the scene right before Sam leaves is my favorite one. It was, she goes, "Are you telling me I'm in the middle of fan fucking fiction?" Which was like, I remember writing that as Sam writing Scream 5, which is me writing Scream fan fiction because I'm not Kevin Williamson. Like, it was like the level upon level upon level was so weird. Like,
I love it. I remember watching that scene one of the first times when we had it kind of cut together, after the day, just at home watching it and having that moment of like, she is literally just describing our movie to us in the most straightforward way. And I just love that whole scene because of exactly that.
it's also, it's not what's interesting too, and I sort of didn't realize this till after the fact, is she's giving you the whole movie. Like, it's
Yeah,
not
exactly.
it's not a scene where like halfway through a movie we're like, well, maybe the killer's up to this or that. She's
She nails
dead
it.
right, like, about
Yeah, exactly.
everything. To the point where, like, I remember you cut it the way where it's like where she actually points at David for legacy characters. And it's like so great.
I love this part too. This is one of those sequences. This isn't all the Screams, and I think the way you guys just crafted this, it's incredible because I love it when the movie just slows down for a second and it tells you some shit's gonna happen.
Yeah,
and
it's kinda
this,
good.
Hang on shots a little longer.
Yeah.
It's not as cutty.
And
Not a lot of dialogue.
You guys took what was on the page and ran with it and really expanded it. But I got very giddy because I had written the "You ever seen the movie Psycho" line, and
then the cut to was great.
the cut, and then I was, with the musical sting in the shower, I was just like, "Oh, God bless you guys!"
and I
That is
remember-
that is so fun.
I remember this whole sequence too. This was one that we were designing in pre-production because of schedule and budget issues.
Location.
The original version of the West Demise. There was he smashed into a room and he found a
and
floor
there was a
safe
gun
and was
safe.
trying to get the gun
Thing.
out.
Yeah.
And it really clicked. We were talking about just what we had to use. We knew we had this great location. We knew we had this very specific chunk of time.
Oh,
And
wait,
the idea-
Coggeshall reference.
Coggeshall and Vincent.
Lots of
Sorry.
Easter eggs in all of
the
the
text chains.
the text chains and stuff.
Sorry,
but,
Tyler. Go
but
ahead.
no, it dawned on us how fun it would be to do a sequence where the audience is aware of the threat, but the character isn't. And the character's just going about their normal day. And what's fun about it is you know that it's coming. You just don't know from where and when it's gonna happen. And that was, I remember the level of excitement around, oh shit, this is like, we can do something really fun with this. And we found this amazing location that had all of these little doors and hallways, and just worked out perfectly.
It's so
So I'll
you guys.
say there's a hidden 5 in that shot.
Oh,
Lots of hidden 5s throughout the movie. Shout out to
cool.
Chad Keith.
love that. The
pretty
other
cool.
thing too is I remember when we were writing this, we got super excited about the idea of building a sequence where it was who's gonna get it, and then in the end they both get it. Like, we just sort of loved that.
The double whammy.
Can you guys talk just a little bit about Marley, who was so super game to come back? But I remember seeing the dailies, and I was like, oh, she's great, but she's like, those pants are interesting, and like she's drinking wine, and then you'd had a whole character conversation with her, right?
She really wanted to play Judy Hicks. She's like, her words, not mine. She's a cougar. That's what she does. That's her thing.
Yeah,
That was
she's
that
a
was,
mom. She's got some time
she's
off.
Like, and, on her off hours, she does a thing. And I know we all kind of joked, like, during a killing spree, she probably would actually be a sheriff. But Marley really leaned into it,
Yeah.
and I think it really makes this. There's like a fun that comes
her,
with it.
It gives her like a dimension that she
Yes.
doesn't previously have.
Just drinking wine at 4 o'clock.
Yeah,
and,
she's got her like her leopard pink pants.
Yeah,
on.
I love that for a minute we enter like an old school slasher.
Yep.
yeah, walking around with the huge knife.
And this is the rare daytime killing. And we
got
talked
excited about this.
Yeah, we were like, let's have it on like Main Street USA, like in broad daylight on somebody's front porch. And we obviously knew it was going to be Judy, but it's so awkward and strange because he works in the shadows, and now here he is in broad daylight hacking somebody to death.
And that American flag does a lot.
It does.
Like, visually, and that was not set deck. That was on the house when we got there, and it
Wow.
just
Great.
You know, talking about Main Street USA, we were like, well, here you go.
And now the door sequence begins.
Yeah,
And I think it's not talking out of school to sort of say like this sequence works really well with audiences, but it was a fight to keep as much of it in the movie.
absolutely.
That was a big
Yeah,
fight.
that
was a big
like
fight.
what's the line between it being perfectly overly long and overly long? I think that was a thing that we kept fighting to keep it just long enough that it becomes silly, it becomes ridiculous, and it
the
feels
tension
like,
and the humor can
yeah,
play
it can play
simultaneously.
simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's I remember the first cut we had of this, which was probably like 3 minutes longer. I gotta say, I still loved it. I was like, I could
Pretty
pretty
great.
all day.
I remember I had no notes ever
Yeah.
on. I love all of this so much, and you guys, I think, in casting Dylan, who is so game, but like also just I think the baggage he kind of brings into the movie as an actor makes a lot of people think he's gonna be the
Right,
bad
he's
guy.
gonna last longer.
So the fact that he goes out here,
Yeah, Dylan, he kind of cast himself. He called us and was like, "I want to be in the movie. I'm the biggest Scream fan." And he does his band, The Wallows, now more than acting. And
He came out of retirement.
Yeah, we had one Zoom with him, and we're like, "Fuck yeah! Like we have to have him. That'd be incredible."
yeah,
We should also say that his the picture of him as a kid on the refrigerator is also the picture they use in 13 Reasons. of
Is
him
it
as a
really?
kid.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
that's funny.
This was just one of those instances where the location works perfectly
love
for
this
what the
house.
gag is. All of these doors.
I can't remember somebody who was pushing to cut it was like, "Yeah, you were watching this great horror movie, and then we paused for 2 minutes to see a man set the table."
I remember that
Fair
very
note.
well.
Fair note.
I guess
I was like, yes, we could watch him for 3 minutes if you
very
like.
exciting.
Easter egg here with the lemon squares.
Yeah.
I don't know if this counts as an Easter egg
Monsters.
so much
They're
as a
monsters.
huge call out.
Yeah.
It's not hidden. The other thing too, just in terms of people who loved Scream, is to mention is Mason Gooding wrote his college essay
Yeah. College
Yeah.
essay.
about the original movie.
We should see if we can get that on a special feature.
Oh, that's a great
That's a
idea.
great idea.
Great.
Yeah.
This was so fun to shoot. Oh my god, I love just the camera on this.
Yeah, and just
Brett
long
Jukowitz.
takes,
Brett
as few cuts
Jukowitz.
as possible. This gag with the doors, and then this one is closed, and it's open, and then he
We
closes.
should talk a little bit about the surprise we did for Dylan here.
Yeah, really quick, just to talk about Brett for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Just Brett, our first conversation with Brett was just like, how do we make this feel like a modern movie made today and still feel like it lives in the Scream world visually, that it can feel and look like Scream without feeling and looking exactly like Scream. And I think for our money, he just did a great job.
Yeah.
You have like grounding things, but also stylizing them just enough that you're in the experience of the fantasy of the movie, but it never feels like you're.
I still see the exhale,
No.
but I'm so glad we cut it.
Okay.
I'm so glad
okay.
we cut it.
What was the surprise
Yeah, Chad.
for Dylan?
Oh, basically, like on that Dylan's reaction to Ghostface was genuine because we snuck Ghostface in on the take, and we did not tell him that Ghostface was going to be on that take
Oh,
yet.
wow.
And he hadn't seen Ghostface
And he hasn't
yet.
seen
That was the
Ghostface
first time
yet.
he saw Ghostface
Oh.
on
Yep.
set. Yeah.
That's cruel and effective.
Very.
It's a very real. I mean, he was like
Genuinely
genuinely
terrified.
scared. It was awesome.
This effect is a mix
Oh
of
my God.
practical and
Yeah.
VFX. Our amazing VFX team, our special effects team, built this apparatus that you could actually pass a knife through.
But it
and
is
then we had
practical.
them clean it up.
Yeah,
Clean it up in VFX.
Which
with
is
them.
awesome. By the way, I'm very proud the amount of knife to head trauma in this film is
my God.
pretty. Between that and Richie's mouth later.
So much.
Vince's neck.
Vince's neck.
Vince's
Yeah,
neck,
Vince's
exactly.
neck. Yeah.
This is one of the scenes where I think the COVID of it all kind of was a thing we really had to deal with because we don't have a lot of extras, and it was like, how do we really build this out? And Rudy, our AD, who we could talk about for 2 hours, 3 hours, I think he just did a really good job of moving people around, making it really work. Yeah, Gale.
Some of those paramedics are at the party later, aren't they?
Yes.
Everybody,
they're in every
all the
scene.
paramedics,
Yeah.
all the cops, also party kids.
They're at the hospital.
Everywhere. They're at the hospital.
They're at the party. They're
It
at
is like the
hospital.
student film where you're just moving your friends
Yes,
around in the
that's
background.
That's the whole movie.
Woodsboro,
They're jogging
population
by
of
Ned in
33.
Seattle. Yeah.
This was our first day shooting with Courtney. We literally met Courtney in person moments before shooting this scene.
I also love, if you look at the whole franchise, I think literally we're like, oh, well, she's never had a giant red suit, so she's going to be in red here and then never been in blue. She's in these crazy primary colors in every movie and is never repeating. So there's this wonderful sort of fashion of Gale Weathers over the last 25 years.
Emily Gunshore, our costume designer, did that for a lot of the characters. You know, you'll see Richie too has a little bit of the flannel that you see on Jill and obviously Skeet.
And definitely Liv is a little Tatum. Like
Liv is a
there's
little Tatum.
And I don't think we were prepared for how huge of a challenge that was going to be during the pandemic to source clothing. Emily, I mean, she worked so hard to make everyone feel distinct. And what we didn't know that was happening behind the scenes is, you know, she had people in other states driving to get clothes to ship them to Wilmington because there was just nothing available where we were shooting.
This was also a big, watching the dailies for this, was a big, just them playing these characters, talking about the dissolution of their characters' marriage.
This was one of the most surreal scenes that I took the first stab at, because writing just the names, I mean, in general, writing, you know, Sydney, Dewey, Gale, Judy, and then writing dialogue under it that isn't written by Kevin Williamson was just like so surreal. I was like, I'm writing for these iconic characters, but then having the reunion scene, that was when I felt like I got a version of it that worked. I felt like, okay, I've contributed.
No,
you know, like I've
more than
My work here is done.
I've done something.
And then he just walked out. It was the craziest fucking thing.
It was
This
a mic
also
drop
felt-
moment. I just
but
left.
they were like, I remember the dailies. Like there were a lot of tears.
Yeah,
they-
a lot of
yeah.
emotion.
A lot of emotion.
What you guys wrote for them, they really took to heart and they really gave it their all. And they were not holding back on this. And I remember after like the second or third take, I mean, it was full tears. And
All of us, like behind the monitors too. It's so
yeah, but you know,
emotional.
it was something they'd obviously lived through. And I remember they told us after that they're like, okay, that one was definitely not for the movie. That was for us. You know,
Right.
we'll get to the one that's for the movie. You know,
Right.
and they were really working through some stuff. And it was just, it was so inspiring and impressive to watch them be so open and vulnerable in front of all of us who they just met. And, you know, playing characters that they've played for a quarter of a century.
Yeah.
I think they knew this was going to be their only scene together.
Yeah.
You know, on the shoot.
We really did our best to honor these characters and the legacy. You know, they were so important to us.
Yeah. So don't hate us.
Yeah, we
Don't-
really did our best. We really love these characters.
Brought to you by Pizza Hut.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Easter egg central.
Hey, yeah, this is Easter egg central for sure.
Chelsea and James from Dead Meat, good
What does that say
dear
on-
dear friends of ours.
What does that say on the right there on the? I think it'd be
Kirby,
interesting for people.
Woodsboro Survivor.
I think you should just. I think people, if they want to pause the movie
Yes.
and check out the other videos,
Every
that will be-
screen in this
Every
movie.
number,
Yeah.
we designed that little stab thing because we were like, it's got to be kind of lame.
I think
so
I
we
see
just did it
some
on our
names
own.
there.
Yep.
Some certain names.
Yeah. There's even a stew one there specifically for you guys.
Thank you.
Don't even.
Guy is the resident
Not
guy.
even gonna. Don't go down that road.
We won't go down that road, but let's just say I'm a big Stu fan.
A big Stu fan.
Chester Tam,
Well, we
that's
all
my
are.
old roommate.
I
Chester
didn't know
and
that. Was
Reggie
Chester your old roommate?
Yeah, Chester and I.
No
that's Chester.
kidding.
Yeah, we lived together.
I knew you
when
knew
we
each
first moved
other.
to LA.
I
Yeah,
didn't know
we
that
met
until
for
a few
years.
months ago. Yeah.
Vincent and Farney.
Yeah, Vincent and Farney.
Vincent and Farney. Trip
That's
Vincent
Trim
and Tara
Vincent.
Farney. Producers on Ready or Not. This is a great sort of
Dahlia.
one way to do you go
Dahlia
that way?
Delili,
Do you go?
our on-set
Costumer.
costumer. Yeah.
Do I stay with my ex-wife or do I get in the car towards death?
It's a quick descent into darkness.
When he leaves too, I love the Gale line. About beauty.
This was a nice.
Totally stay.
Okay, now
Nice
this, by the way,
nod.
this we're talking about meta. This breaks the universe,
Yes.
right?
It
does,
Because
We have Scott Foley in it.
well, not only
And
that,
Pacey.
and that film
And
student
Pacey.
from Scream 2
Yes.
is for some reason now.
Well, in this scene, the funny thing about this too is that we had Remember, we had you guys wrote it in as I know what you did last
yeah.
summer.
Yes, and they were like, there'll be terrible rights issues
Yeah.
with that. Let's just use Kevin Williams instead. Joe.
When we had that in there for a long time during the edit, and then the funny thing is when you watch the actual episode, I think it's like called The Scare or something. It's from first season.
Yeah.
There's a Scream poster on the wall. There's so much of that actual episode that relates directly to this.
I mean, there's a huge chunk where
and
Michelle
shot-
Williams is like on the phone, walking around
it's
the house
all
alone.
Scream.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's even shot at Screen Gems, which is where we shot this.
Oh, that's amazing. And by the way, the other thing I learned recently too is Scream 2 is shown during Halloween H2O, which also stars Michelle Williams. So the entire universe is broken.
Yeah, and speaking of Halloween, we have a little Halloween, our own version of the Halloween scene coming up later.
These lights under the rails, that's a Brett Jukowitz special.
Ah.
He pitched so hard on those.
He did. He loved those
Like, oh, is it
LEDs.
going to feel like we're on a spaceship? And he's like, just trust me. Just trust me. I'm glad
The
we
smartest
did.
thing we did was trust him.
That's
great.
Right. We did go in one time though when they made them change colors for us because it could go
Oh, it
any
was
color
super
you
fun.
wanted. Yeah.
Felt like a rave.
This was a real moment for us. We were getting a lot of pushback on the size of the hospital hallway that we were building, and were we going to use it? We could certainly cheat it, and build something shorter and just sort of shoot it two ways. And for us, we really wanted it to feel like there was a significant distance she has to travel to be safe, and we used every inch of that set. We're so grateful that we ended up, building it as large as we did.
This guy was a real cop, right? Who does
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
extra work?
Guy and I were really excited to sort of build cinema's slowest chase
Yeah.
of all time. Like that was sort of our
Seafoam Prius.
excitement. Yeah. No, not with the Prius, with the wheelchair.
The wheelchair, yes, yeah, and
I was
Prius.
no, that no. It's by the way, cinema's fast as sunset, but
Right.
cinema's
We
slowest
talked
chase.
about that sunset a lot. This is also Jenna. One of the jokes we had was that her other scenes, it was always like, oh, at least I'm not in a wheelchair crying. It felt like we were shooting for about a week.
She must have been really excited to do the scenes where she's not in a hospital gown
Yes.
too. I love that she checks for the gun. That she's smart.
Yeah.
You guys had that in the script.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, we know.
Now what does Ghost? Now what does
Right, yeah, of
Ghostface do
course.
with the gun? Nothing. Who knows? But
Saves it for later.
It's this was Jack was really excited to do a line. You hit me with the phone.
right. Yeah.
We're all just sucked in.
There wasn't there another side of I don't know if you guys ever shot it, but there was the side of him getting the phone call from her
Yes.
to
Right.
go.
Yeah, in that same
we
motel
shot
room.
it.
Yeah.
Motel
yeah.
room. Yeah.
But we shot it, but we didn't use it.
No, you don't
yeah.
need it. This is our defensive wound.
Yeah, Jamie, I
That's-
actually think that was your note. It was a,
Yeah.
well, it's so much scarier if we don't know that he's on his way to the
That's
hospital.
true. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of blows the scare, I
That's
guess.
the Jerry O'Connell Scream 2 defensive wound.
Yeah, exactly, in the hallway.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, and this was the big the update to the Ghostface costume.
Yeah.
This was I mean,
We had a lot of
I hope
conversations
this
about
this is taken well in the movie, but we kind of got scared about it because it was.
Yeah.
There's something about seeing the mask while he talks that can feel silly if you're not careful.
Well, and remember we had in the edit, we had taken out all of it.
Yes.
You never at the same time had Ghostface and the dialogue in
Yeah.
a close-up.
Yeah.
And then in the last week of the edit, we put in those 2 or 3 shots, and I think it really kind of made the difference because it actually, for us, it works. We'll see if people accept it or not
Yeah.
when it comes out.
And I remember, I mean, it was kind of born of again, a conversation in prep where we were talking about actually blocking the scene and him holding a phone and a knife and a voice modulator
Yes.
and
Yeah.
what was ultimately going to be too silly and the choice was, how do we make it as scary as possible? What's the choice that makes it as scary as possible?
And Roger Jackson, this is one of the scenes
Oh my
that
God.
because he called in on the first one, so he was on the phone with Jenna in the opening scene, and then for a lot of the other ones, he would send us recordings so that we could kind of play them in real time
Yeah.
on set as needed. And this is one that we used his for, and then also one of the somebody else on set.
I want to say, wasn't it Patrick Lucier that told us when we had that Zoom with him that Drew and Roger were on the phone in real time?
Yeah.
And that's when we made the decision to do it again.
Yeah. Well, and
God,
also
it's so effective.
He also sort of doesn't. It's nice. I mean, he's very menacing here, but like in the opening, that he gets to be not just a crazy psycho killer again.
Right. Which only happens in the original, really, right? In the opening.
Yeah. I think so. All right, let's talk about Dewey.
Dewey.
He just he's got the big role here too, right? Because David is
a wrestler.
really physical and in great shape and a wrestler.
Really
There it is, and it was
He's a
like
wrestler,
he's doing all of this.
All of it.
Yeah, David did 100% of his own stunts.
Yeah. We had a stunt. You know, the coordinator came in, who was also his double, and choreographed all of this stuff to do a pass at it with him with David. You know, not in the action, and David just. I mean, you can tell he's so good with his body.
Yeah.
That was we had one take to get that glass smash right, and it was the last shot of the day after shooting in
On a
this
tight
hospital.
day. Yeah.
And Richie's expression there.
Richie thinking Amber is down. I remember because I took the first whack at this, and I remember writing the death, getting to he lies there, eyes open, motionless, or whatever it said. And it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I was just like, I'm done for the day. Like, I can't. Yeah, I got super emotional.
Yeah, that's how it felt shooting it too. We all it was funny without talking to each other. Everybody showed up like in a button down that day. Like there was just a level of like respect. We knew that we were about to do something really difficult, and it was a tricky day just emotionally, and for David too. He was so just in the zone.
Yeah.
And it was hard to know how to interact with him because it was again, we were doing something so kind of reverential. It was,
and he does such a great
really
job
emotional.
Of it. I mean, it's so gives his all to it. And I remember writing that the two knives, because that was in the script too, that it's both of them, because you kind of we sort of want you to feel like, oh, maybe he could get. Oh no, he's not. Oh, they're really doing it. Oh.
Yeah, and then remember you texted me a few times that day.
I love his he knows he's dying smile when he sees Gail's face on the phone here. Just exactly the right amount.
It just, it was. I remember reading.
Right there.
I'm a nerd, and I remember reading. There's an oral history of Star Trek, and there's a whole thing about Ron Moore talking about he wrote Generations, and he wrote The Death of Captain Kirk, and they went and shot it, and then he went into his trailer and burst into tears and was like, I can't believe, what have I done? I just killed one of my heroes. And that's kind of how I feel about this. It just is, and then to see Courtney play this.
Yeah, and I remember, I mean, we had even shot a little piece in the aftermath of Dewey's death, to protect us if we wanted him to live. And I think we all just knew after shooting it, like, there's no way we can turn back from this. It felt like the worst right choice in the movie.
We'll see what people think of it, but it definitely, just as an artistic choice, felt like the right decision. But I remember we would talk leading up to it too. We're like, "Are we sure? Like, we're still doing it, right? We're all still doing it. We're all still doing it." And then in the edit, every time we got to it, we just sort of go, "We're monsters."
It just but it supercharges this next piece of the movie. You just can't wait to figure out who the killer is. So that they can get
I wrote the first pass at this sort of aftermath.
Yeah.
It was literally, you guys, as you had with Ready or Not, you plucked the images out of my brain. Like that, the Gale arriving, the sort of nightmarish, surreal quality, and the flashing lights, and it was just exactly what I wrote and what I saw in my head. And then this, like her sitting alone, the coffee's gone cold, just perfect. You guys did a great job.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that sort of gave us confidence too was Kevin Williamson being like, it's a horror movie, people die. Yeah. Like he was not protective of it at all. He got it, he understood it, he loves David, but it's a horror movie and people die. It's a slasher. People get killed in a slasher.
You can't be safe.
Yeah, you can't be safe.
It's the thing when we had that call with Patrick Lussier that we've mentioned a few times, that was the thing he said in that opening scene when they started editing the Drew Barrymore scene, and he said that Wes told him, I need the audience to feel like they're in the hands of a madman. Yeah. And it's, that was one of the overriding kind of things we kept going back to throughout the whole thing. Courtney's performance in this scene is really
so great. She don't care.
As soon as I heard.
She's so good.
Sorry.
I really love this moment with, Sam watching them. And
from afar.
Yeah.
Understanding what was lost here.
Yeah. it's just kind of one of those. I think it's what you guys did so well with the script is that this is a universal moment. You know, this is a truly tragic thing that grounds everything, and it doesn't. You're talking about how, you know, people need to die in a horror movie, and it's nice to see how that affects people.
Yeah,
and not just
and grieve and not,
yeah,
you know.
exactly.
Yeah.
And everything you talked about earlier too. It's the only possible reason Sydney would come back to Woodsboro.
Yep.
How are you feeling?
And then this scene, guys, you have that super emotional scene, and then this scene just kind of steps us back into like, okay, now let's go have some fun.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think Gave Us Better Drugs is a Guy Busick special.
It's so good. Yeah.
And I mean,
Jenna's little giggle there too is just
And you're so high right now, aren't you?
Yep,
Yeah.
also Guy Busick special.
This was another one of those scenes that we had a long version of it, and
Yeah.
I could live in this scene forever.
Yeah.
me too. I think just Jenna and Melissa.
They have
both
such
did
a
so good in
connection.
this.
Yeah.
You for leaving me too.
We haven't talked that much about the cast, but like I think we could do a whole one of these just
Yeah.
about how great everybody in the cast was.
Why didn't you come to me back then?
And Melissa, by the way, such an amazing.
Holy
You know, we had when we were casting this, In the Heights hadn't come out yet, so it was one of those things where it was like she'd done Vita, and then she had this movie in the can that everybody said she was phenomenal in, but we hadn't seen it, so it was a little bit of jumping off a cliff a little bit. And I remember, did John Chu show
We
you
had
stuff?
we had a conversation with him.
Yeah.
We just talked to him, and he was like, "She's great. She's great.
He's like,
you
"Do
guys
it.
are in good.
Cast
if you,
her."
If
Yeah.
you cast her, you're being a good place." And you know, between that and Vito, we were like, "Great, let's
Yeah,
do it." And
yeah.
you know, obviously, you know, when we met her and we all zoomed with her, she was just so wonderful.
Yeah, and she just came to play. It's just
Yeah.
you know.
And it was very daunting in trying to come up with a new protagonist for the franchise.
Yeah.
And so we kind of started from a place of like, what's the anti-Sid? You know, if Sydney
Yeah.
in the first film was very wholesome, very, you know, PG-13, as Billy might say, who is someone who's kind of opposite of that, whose you know, life has gone off the rails? She acted out quite a bit in high school. She's not the quote-unquote good girl. And she's carrying a lot of baggage, which of course Sydney is too, but I think they reacted to it in very different ways.
Yeah.
And then to find Melissa to inhabit that, it was like, wow.
And then as all these threads start kind of weaving together here, the way you guys then after that bringing Sid and Melissa together, you just go, okay, right on. We're entering that part of the movie.
Nev, I remember too, was sort of great because like her notes were like, I don't need to say that. Like she would she would do it like by subtraction, you know, that kind of like, I wouldn't say all that. I do this with a look. I do like, it was never about like, give me more. It was just like, what's right for the character in this moment. Like it was a very, and it was crazy. I remember the first time we got typed up notes from her, and I think the gun line's hers, right?
I think she changed it.
She changed it. It was I think she put
Sydney
the
fucking
Yeah, she
Prescott.
put the fucking
She put the
in.
Sydney fucking Prescott. Of course, I have a gun.
My favorite note of hers from that list, which I'll always remember, is that it was basically telling us we had our heads too far up our own asses. Was like there was
Accurate
there was but it was in such a nice and professional way. It was like some meta reference to something, and she was like, "Guys, I've been in 4 of these movies, and even I don't know what the hell you're talking
Yeah, exactly
about."
right.
Yeah.
Like, I've done this
Yeah.
4 times and I still don't. Yeah.
She
I was
also
like,
had the
"Oh my
great.
God, that's great."
She had the great note too of wanting there to be a reason for her specifically,
Yeah.
Sid specifically, to return to Woodsboro, and this idea of her being a mother and wanting to keep her kids safe and just making sure that was really baked in. It's a great addition.
But no matter what you or the killer or anyone says, this isn't my
This is
authority.
the convention center in Wilmington for people interested in filming locations.
He's so the killer.
So,
Get the fuck out of town.
you know, the fun thing about the Jack stuff was he'd always give us something, you know, a little bit different. I could watch his dailies just over
Oh, God,
and
yeah.
over and over.
Oh, I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Later at the party, and again, fought to keep it in, but his whole run as the kids are leaving,
And
after
after
saving your life.
Yep.
Saving your life.
Thank you for leaving the
And
cup.
Up. Yeah.
Remember that got cut down a little bit.
It did.
And then after that last test screening, we were like, and we'll put this back in
I remember.
in its entirety.
It was let's see if we can sneak this back.
Yeah.
Like it was not, which I was a part of. I think I was like, yeah, do it. I love, by the way, I've never said, I love the tiny Woodsboro sign.
I know.
It's the
It was supposed to be
smallest
bigger.
sign.
It was supposed to be bigger.
I mean, you don't need like the Welcome to Amity from Jaws, but it's like like an iPad Mini. Like it's not even, and then the beginning of the movie, it's treated with such reverence of, oh no, we're entering Woodsboro.
It's like an 8 by 10.
Now
you are leaving Woodsboro. It gives it a sense of authenticity because why the fuck would we make it so small?
Yeah. It
couldn't have
by the
been
way,
a choice.
exactly, well played. It's a reverse psychology. They play, and again, we'll see how it plays for an audience, but the inhaler stuff so well, and that was one of our biggest, because we're like, we got to get them to this house, but are they?
We had more
Here's
conversations
a 5,
about
by
the
way.
fucking
Yeah.
inhaler than I think anything else.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's the and then also Jenna. I mean, Jenna really studied like what does it feel like? How do I do it? And then we did that
Matt
thing.
Lillard's
we were
in
like,
the back here.
That's
I think
right
saying,
there.
Matthew
Just said
Lillard.
it.
Hey, Freeman, cool house.
So I played that for my wife. She was pretty stoked. Thank you. And this is everyone saying to Wes.
Hey,
yeah.
to Wes.
To Wes.
And I'm sure by the time
To
this
Wes.
comes out, we have a whole list of everybody who participated.
How many total voices? It's like 30 something.
All of the cast, and then a lot of people we mentioned earlier.
From the looming specter
And
of death.
Again, shout out to Chad Keith. Every single corner of this house, totally fabricated. They had people go out to the original and measure everything. I mean, it is like
man.
down to the millimeter a replica.
Walking
of
onto
the
it
original house.
too, and watching it get built was like just truly incredible.
And
this is-
everyone's
this
all
scene
the
was
legacy
very-
cast
This
react.
scene
I
was
feel, I'm
so
sorry, we
fucking
have to.
Yeah.
This is there are no stairs here, so this is Mikey just pretending to walk downstairs, which I think is top 3 moments of the shoot for me is watching her try to pretend to walk.
And that might be the only the take we use might be the only take where she didn't just burst out
Just crack
laughing.
up. Yeah.
This is a scene. I remember we have a shared doc that we just write all of our notes on every night when we watch it after the edit. And I remember this is one I wrote down after the first cut, being like, nobody can ever touch this scene. It is perfect. Do not touch it. It cannot get cut.
By the way, the scene it's from the very first draft of the script. I don't think we touched a word.
and-
Like,
yeah.
And we didn't
I
touch
took a
the
pass at
edit.
it, a guy took a pass at it, and then it just stayed. And
Well, and it's
and
weirdly
Kevin was
one
like,
of the liftable scenes. Like it
doesn't-
wouldn't
yeah.
affect story, but it's also like the heart of what this movie is in so many ways.
And they're both so good in it.
They're great. They're both great. There was sort of this idea, and it obviously the marketing shows you that it's Stu's house and stuff, but I think 5 years from now, if you're just coming to this and you didn't see all the trailers and stuff, that we all collectively, the 5 of us, really loved of let's see how long we can keep it a secret that they're in Stu Macher's house. And so a lot of the edit is, I mean, I remember talking about the guy coming up the stairs with a beer, like, are we showing too much of this?
Right.
All sort of leading to when she's on the phone with Sid later and you get that big pullout like you're in Stu Macher's house. So I'm curious
How that
lives after the initial release. Or if we're totally wrong and immediately.
Well, you guys made the great choice in the script of making it a basement and not the garage.
Yeah.
Because I remember when we were
talked
just-
about that.
Yeah,
for
we did.
straight up
Yeah.
production reasons, we were like, maybe it'd be easier to just do the garage and talk to you guys. And
We're like, if you go into the garage, it's over.
It's over.
Yeah.
I remember the first scene that we thought, fuck, we're blowing it, was when Chad walks outside, which is maybe 2 or 3 scenes.
It's tricky, yeah.
Because we were like, how do we shoot this without seeing the house?
Yeah.
I remember even scouting. The plan wasn't originally to rebuild the house. We were looking for something that we could augment to feel like the house when we wanted it to, and eventually realized that, there's no way to do this better than just building a replica.
Which in hindsight is crazy.
It's crazy.
That you were
That
gonna
would-
try
that would
out.
even
Yeah,
was
that was
crazy.
I like that you were like, oh, well, we obviously have to build the hospital because there are no hospital type places, but the house we'll be able to find in Wilmington.
Mason and Sonia here are so funny.
So good.
Yeah, their interplay is just great. Also, Mindy.
And Jasmine, yeah,
Who
exactly.
came up with the thumbs up thing was not in the script, which
No,
is
that-
great. It's just them.
Yeah, they just
they-
did that.
No, I
Look
think-
at the sign.
I actually wrote the Mindy thumbs up.
Yes.
Oh, you
At
did?
the end,
Okay.
right?
No, it's here, and then at the end, they did the.
They
thumbs
did
up
the
again.
yeah, exactly.
And we're gonna end it. After tonight, no more books. No
This
more
is all
movies,
shot
no
on stage 10 at Screen Gems, and it was, during all the other car scenes are actual car scenes, and this one was just, you know what, let's just cut straight to this.
So
'cause
what was
this is the-
what was it like shooting Stab?
The first new Stab footage since Scream 2.
It was the last thing we shot, and it was so fun. So fun.
So fun. It was so fun. It felt like like that pizza party at the end of the year of school where we knew we were like
that and Billy were the same day,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Yep.
And did you also shot crime scene photos of dead Billy Loomis?
and Stu with the TV, right?
Yes, which
Yeah.
we
Stu
should
with the TV
we
and
should
the
make
leg break.
we should make sure those make it onto the special features.
Definitely.
We should send those in.
The
They're-
Terror leg break was that day too. We did it in the front in
Oh,
the
wow.
little foyer of Stu's house.
Seeing Skeet with the bullet hole in the Billy Loomis the sort of death look was one of the more surreal experiences. we had
And
on
he's
the
still,
movie.
we de-aged him a little bit, but
He
we
looks
were like,
so good.
this
He
guy
looks so
looks
good.
incredible. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
There was definitely like, oh, we don't need to de-age him. He looks
Yeah.
great.
Fine. This is one that I think the five of us probably talked about more than anything
Oh my God.
during production, right? Because we had
Yeah.
you guys had written a much kind of bigger version of it, and we had such limited space to shoot this.
Because you were on stage, so
We
it's
were
not.
on
There
stage.
is no. It's not like It's not like they're rolling hills and stuff like that. And it was a more complicated. There was a leaf pile at one point. There was a whole sort of and it was just. I remember you guys had to like draw out I was like, well, have him walk away from the house. You're like, well, funny story. There's
Nowhere to go.
That's
12
impossible.
feet. Right.
Also, we're trying to protect seeing the house. So we can't shoot him walking anywhere, and we can't shoot the house behind him, but he's got to stay close to the house. So it definitely.
Yeah, at one point we pitched to our line producer, well, we'll just build a flat that looks like the side of the house out in the forest on the back lot, and his head fucking exploded. Yeah. Said, I can tell you exactly what we're not gonna do.
I also like the conversations of like, well, when does he drop the phone? No, when does he drop the candlestick? Does he,
Which, by the way, the candlestick, really funny tangent. The two candlesticks where he picks them up, which are there because you guys said he picks up a candlestick. When you watch the 96 footage, in ours and in the original, there are candlesticks there in the original
No
movie.
way.
In
Do
that
you guys
same
know that
corner.
or not?
No.
Very randomly.
No.
feel like I knew that, but I don't want to take like it's one of those things where I think it might have been a.
I wrote the candlesticks and I
Yeah.
didn't know.
No, but it was a
I think it was like a
it was a set deck
psychological.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought
Everybody
I
just
wrote the
has
candlesticks for the
in corner
Professor
of their
Plum
TV.
joke that got cut.
Yeah, well.
Which I think I wrote and then cut. He does, yeah.
Yeah, this was Mason. Mason.
No, but somebody says Professor Plum in ADR.
Yeah, we put it
Which
in.
I
Oh, you put it
love.
back
Yeah,
in?
yeah.
as he's
It's
walking out.
super
bitches.
quiet. No, he sells Colonel Mustard.
Colonel Mustard.
Oh, right.
Very, very off camera.
God, I love that jacket.
I do too. Mason wore that on
So
the
does
plane
Mason.
home.
Yeah, he
The other thing I'll say is Chad Living was a late decision.
decision.
He was
That was
supposed
a
to die.
Mason Gooding
Mason.
decision, I
Yeah,
believe.
That was it. Well, no, I mean, I think just seeing. Well, I don't think
we
he
had-
didn't make the decision.
No, I mean, but
He
we
was like,
were
"I'll
like,
kill
oh,
you."
Mason's.
He's so good.
We had
good. We
to,
have to.
yeah, we
Yeah.
fell in love with that character, and so, but I think it was still
His
kind
performance.
of a,
Yeah, we were seeing
when he
dailies.
was cast, then it was like, well, we definitely can't kill him.
Yeah, it was one of those things too, and it's also it felt like because also with Mindy, and they were just so good. It just sort of felt like a hard thing to do to Mindy.
Yeah.
5 minutes. I always like to think what happened 5 minutes after the movie ends, and if 5 minutes after the movie ends, she gets told in the ambulance that her brother's dead, you sort of go.
Not fun anymore.
It's just too rough, yeah. And we also realized we didn't have any male survivors of this movie,
Yeah,
That's right.
which is okay.
which is
Well,
fine.
again,
But
yeah.
we were kind of like, well, if we get to do more,
You
it'd
need
be
a new
nice to have
Dewey.
you need a new Dewey.
This is one of the scenes that we wanted, again, in trying to hide the house. We talked to Brett a lot about, like, how do we justify
Yeah.
lighting changes and make it feel kind of lively and fun. So there's that little ball right in front of Mason and Sonia making out a couple scenes ago.
Yeah, that sort of
justify
justifies
all of this.
I don't know how it's connected to the light switches.
No, nor do we.
I also have never figured out why Tara showing up needing an inhaler necessitates the end of the entire party, other than the fact that Mikey's about to get down to killing a bunch of motherfuckers. So I always weirdly worried that this tips it. Oh, that guy.
Trey.
Trey.
He's great. He reached out to us after shooting, and he was lovely. He's doing some of the ARG stuff for us too.
Oh, that's so cool. But he's local?
Local,
and,
yeah.
And
Yeah,
he was a
Wilmington.
huge Scream fan.
Yep.
Thanks,
The
teens.
little tip of the
Yeah.
hat.
He
I
just, Let Jack Quaid talk for a while. You're gonna get gold.
I mean, this is the whole run. This is
everything.
It's the whole thing.
This was another one that when Michelle cut this together, our editor, just the assembly of that scene, we were like, oh, this doesn't need any work. We've done it. Little Easter egg here. That's Matt on the screen.
Michael Myers.
Playing Michael Myers because of...
He's not playing Michael Myers. He's playing a slasher.
He's playing masked killer.
Masked
killer. Anonymous masked killer.
This is about
Schmeichel Schmeyers.
the scene where he comes in after the Ghostface comes in after this behind Mindy is about as cute as Guy and I got. Like, we got so giddy about the her. It's so stupidly
level upon
wonderfully
level.
meta.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny to hear you guys say that because that was contagious. And then when we were shooting, everybody was, including ourselves, was very giddy shooting this because it's so
awesome.
fun. And it's also the scene Jack plays Ghostface in that scene, which is this scene in the original where Skeet played Ghostface.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the funniest part is that Skeet was on set the day we shot that Jack doing.
It's a snake eating its own tail.
Yeah.
And scared Jasmine too, right? Because he does one where he didn't have the mask on.
Yes.
And she turned around and it was just Jack in the robe.
Which is also the reason Ghostface in that scene is about 3 feet taller than all the other scenes.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think both of our Ghostface stunties were 5'10", I believe.
Okay.
Which is the exact height of both Jack Quaid and Mikey Madison.
Yes, they are. They are
Exactly
all
right.
5'10".
I remember Kevin being like, on the first movie, Wes had made sure that everybody was wearing the same shoes. And by the second movie, he's like, nobody cares.
Though, it's funny, we took that to heart. We talked to Emily on shore about that. And so you'll see a lot of, people wearing boots and black shoes.
Doc Martens.
No, totally.
Martens and...
It's one of those things where if you're looking at everyone's height, the movie's not working.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like you have bigger problems than,
And I remember Nev telling us really just point blank, she's like, guys, no one cares. Ghostface is its own character.
Just have fun.
It's Ghostface is his own thing.
Yeah, we were talking about that at one point, that all of the ghost faces have the same voice, really, from movie to movie, even though it's different people.
Yeah.
And I don't mean the actual voice, I mean the same,
Cadence.
personality.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes.
The same vocabulary,
Exactly.
the same, cadence. So it is its own character.
That said, Guy and I did work out who is where and when and is this possible, and we did put a lot of thought into that.
People at home can't see, but they're winking.
We're not winking. We are not. How dare you?
This is
How far are we?
the scene that we just got out of was the one. The chips are Persico chips, named after our AD Rudy Persico, who I think we credit with, along with William Sherrick, obviously, and Ron Lynch, kind of getting us through this whole process during COVID. It was just insane, and they were just really incredible.
I will say, you guys and Brett and everything, it's like, so can you guys set a whole scene in that front hall but hide the staircase and hide the until now?
Yeah, shout out to the camera crew. That's all of this stuff. This work is just incredible.
Same room, different fridge, different couch.
And there's a
Different
pump
paint,
up the
too.
volume, people under the stairs VHS in both
Oh,
movies.
that's awesome.
And then in one, in hers, there's also a Joyride VHS,
Nice.
just for fun.
They're the candelabras. You can see them back there.
These are your rules, man.
Jack.
All that shit.
He's a good ghost face.
There's the Wes Craven hat in the background.
Yep.
Oh, shit.
This scene also had we had a much bigger version of that, right, guys? And then we kind of cut it down to just get us here quickly.
Yeah, to sort of hear it off camera.
Yeah.
We thought it was scarier, and you didn't want to. It's fine. I always love that. I was like, whoops, gotta go.
Yes. Put a cartoon sound
Benny
effect.
Hill theme song.
Yeah.
It's one of the things, when you watch the commentary on the original, and Wes Craven talks about it a lot, is trying to find the line between Goofy and where that line is with Ghostface.
But yeah.
Yes.
I asked her to come with me. She said no.
This was weirdly one of the trickier scenes to shoot.
With so many people.
So many people in a small room. The couch that Mindy was sitting on, we moved it out just so we could get in and actually cover everything out.
We loved the idea of just actually doing an Agatha Christie. Everybody runs into the same,
Finger
just to
pointing.
do the finger pointing. Yeah, which you sort of don't get in the franchise. And
I love Mike.
Yeah. And then
He's so smug.
and then we just shoot a nice teenage girl in the head.
Oh god. Yeah, Mikey's in this.
That gasp from Jack.
Yeah.
They were excited to be evil, like right? Like they were like, all right, here we go. There we go.
Jack kept asking us throughout the process. He's like, I'm really the killer, right? Like you guys aren't gonna change it, right? I mean, he was so thrilled.
Well, a lot of people didn't know, right? Like
Yeah.
we kept the script super locked down. We did write a fully different ending with, I believe it was Mindy and Liv.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was right.
It was,
Yeah, Indian Love.
that some people got, especially like in some of the like post people like, and
there was a name change when we were auditioning. All the characters had different names, which added
Same
another
absolutely.
another level of
confusion.
And then the I remember is the John Blackmore thing, which was my favorite.
No, yes.
Right.
John
Which was
Blackmore.
because in the sides for the reading and my father was and I found out who my father was, and I think it was Rich D'Elia changed it from Billy Loomis to John Blackmore so as not to leak it out. So you'd watch the whole dramatic scene, and then Melissa would go, "This was John Blackmore." And you go, who?
We had some fun with that in the text chain.
Still not sure. This is one of the things that we've joked about is why none of us noticed that the back of the car was open. We'll just take
Because
credit for that.
They're trying to get a killer. Now, look, is it going to be problematic when they try and drive home and the battery is dead? Yes.
Yes.
It absolutely is. At least, by the way, there's continuity.
It stays open.
At least
Yeah,
it stays open.
It stays
does.
open. This was really fun to shoot this.
Yeah.
Gail. Wait, let me see. Oh, you gotta go to the hospital.
Kevin Williamson was on set this day. This was when he came out to visit.
Go finish it.
So that was surreal.
The most nervous I was during the entire shoot.
All
with
three of
Kevin
them.
behind the monitor.
Well, the other thing is, too, I remember there was a conversation, too, about we have to motivate Sydney to go into the house instead of driving Gail to the hospital. You know what I mean? It's sort of like the two sort of pieces of, is she leaving her friend? Is she, how's that going to work? And then you guys told me, Nev is such an actress, you wanted to get that shot where you kind of crane up behind her and see the house. And she's like, why am I standing here?
Yeah,
why am I pausing for dramatic effect?
Which is true.
Yeah.
She Nev gave us so many great notes on set, and they were a lot of times of that kind of nature. And I know that when we got to the kitchen scene that we're coming up on, she kept telling us, guys, it's too much, it's too long, and ultimately she was right. We cut it down, but it was one of those things. I think we had so much fun in the edit, kind of trying to figure out like what are the necessary pieces of this
it,
scene.
yeah, because it was a really long sort of, and I think that was also we were trying to make sure that we got it, like
Right,
you know what I mean.
yeah.
You didn't want to fuck it up, but I do. And by the way, Ned was totally game and did all of it too.
Oh,
but
yeah,
like,
she was fantastic.
But as a pro, she was like, "You're gonna cut all of this."
Yeah, she literally said quite a few times, "You are going to cut this."
And it was from a place of Sydney would be going for that knife. Sydney
Yes.
would be going.
Yeah.
I mean, we actually adjusted the sort of layout of where the props were in the kitchen specifically so it felt like there was more of a reason for her to be trapped as long as she is.
Yeah. I always love the fact that you give her the jankiest.
It's the knife that every
knife.
one of us had it as
Yeah,
kids.
the childhood home
Exactly. It's not the big movie butcher knife. It's like I'm gonna make do with what I have.
That was Jenna's last day of shooting, right?
Yeah.
Hello, Sydney.
We all love the way he says hello. Sydney.
Yeah.
He put there's an extra spring in Roger's step for this one.
Oh, there's two of you.
Shout out again to the camera operator Matt Dahl here with the Steadicam going up and down these stairs, like just an incredible.
Those are steep ass
operator.
stairs.
Yeah.
Because I remember you built it exactly to spec, and it's like you get in there and you're like, holy shit!
Yeah,
that's
every
a
time you're up
really
there, it's, like,
narrow.
so high.
Yeah.
It's so
very
high up
high.
there. Every bit of stunt work we did up here on this landing, it was
Oh, I
like,
hated it.
"Oh,
Right.
stay away from that rail."
Yeah.
And the railing is low.
It was
right?
low
It was like
railing.
mid-thigh, like height.
And I gotta go over it. By the way, holy shit, it's Ghostface from
That was
my favorite line, and I was convinced it wouldn't make it into the. I fought to keep it in, but I was like, "There's no way they let us keep holy shit, it's Ghostface."
And he said it exactly how I imagined it when I wrote it. So I was going to say my two favorite lines I wrote for Richie were "Holy shit, it's Ghostface," and then one coming up, which I'll point out very soon.
That fall off the landing. That is a Michelle Aller magic
That's
magic
amazing.
cut. We had shot a version where we could VFX that where they went over into boxes, but it's just the perfectly hidden, like on
it's
the
a hidden
frame
cut.
edit.
Just to say it while we're on it, that is Mikey in Ghostface. This is one of the few times Mikey's really in Ghostface.
Who had Holy Shit, It's Ghostface as their ringtone?
Karen,
Karen,
our
Karen.
sound supervisor.
Yeah, we could talk about sound forever too. I mean, her whole team was just incredible.
It was sort of amazing too to be like, oh, we're getting Oscar winners to do this.
Yes.
Like,
and they all were such big Scream fans that they put in extra hours. They just, it was for love of the game. It was really
everybody. This was a labor of love for.
Yeah.
Like it just was. It's amazing how many people these movies kind of touched. Like,
both Amber and Richie in this, Jack and Mikey both, they feel like different people once this reveal happens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I called.
This
Eric.
is the line.
Yeah.
It's a bummer, it's me. That came from The Room. I think actually both Holy Shit, It's Ghostface and that line came from you and me riffing.
Yes.
Because we would just improvise Richie dialogue, and
Yep.
this is before we knew he was the killer for sure.
Yeah.
And we fell in love with the character, and so when we got to the point where he reveals it to Sam, it was like speaking for us.
Yes.
It's like, I know, it's a bummer, it's me. Because we love the characters. So
I
much.
remember calling because I'd seen Jack in a bunch of other stuff, and I'm friends with Eric Kripke, who does The Boys, and I remember emailing or calling Eric and saying, A, you do the check to sort of, is he a good person and stuff like that, but B, and I sort of didn't want to tell him why, but I was like, does he have this gear? And he was like, oh, he absolutely has this gear. Like, he'll get you across the finish line with this kind of stuff.
That's great, and he does.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
He's. I love watching him during this stuff. Like once the mask is off, he's so much fun. And we also shout out to water spray on everybody's face here. We were in every
To the spritz onset.
more spritz, just constantly spritzing their faces.
There is one shot of Melissa coming up where it's like she's in Predator. Like it's a little bit.
Just dunked her under the.
It's a little, It's like I know she's lost a lot of blood, but the sauna's. It's not this one. It's
I know
you know where it is.
That tight close up.
Yep.
You don't fucking understand these movies.
This is another example of, everybody in this scene, we were kind of finding it while we were there. And so a lot of these takes there's only a few takes that we're actually using.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we found that once you're on an energy, once the
gotta
performance
stay
is
on
on a
that,
specific
yeah.
energy, it's hard to pivot off of it. There was a little bit of like, oh, it could feel schizophrenic, but I think that's just naturally in the way,
You
both
guys
Jack
also-
and Mikey approached this.
We're
You guys
coming up
also
on my
shot
favorite,
this. So sorry.
Sorry.
Go on. Go. Yep. Oh man, You guys approached this scene too, almost like a stage play. Like you shot long takes of them doing the whole thing, and so I think they were sort of able to find it in that way.
Sidney Prescott.
There's so much exposition here. We just.
It's fun though. It's what you want.
Yeah,
as a fan, it's what I want when we get to this part of the movie. I want to understand where they're coming from.
I also think you buy the length because they're in the same kitchen. It's one of the things that I think this level of exposition doesn't work if they're in just some random place that you're not familiar with.
Yeah. It's also the thing. It's like this and the opening with Jenna too. I think were the two scenes that Guy and I were like, we're not trying to top the original by any, but we want it to feel like they're cousins to it, and so you want to do service to them. You know what I mean? Like,
I remember you guys. I remember very specifically conversations with you guys about the end shot and this scene, and you guys saying, make sure that you're not aping it. You're not just doing the scene over. Do a different version of it. And I think that really kind of gave us that shot right there, by the way.
yes, that's
That's a sprit shot.
She's just come out from the water.
That really gave us the kind of freedom and the permission to be like, okay, we don't have to like live in homage for this.
No,
we can kind of do our own thing.
No, but I think one of the things that we talked about a lot during, every scene that Ghostface is in, that Mikey and Jack are in, is they're creating a play in and of itself. So the fact that they would be in the kitchen soliloquizing for as long as they are, you buy it because
Those
that's
characters
what they're
wanna
doing.
be.
That's what they would do. That's what they would do.
They're cosplaying.
Yeah.
Well, and our take
And it
on
doesn't
like
have
the
to be
opening
logical.
scene, because we had that thing of we had that conversation about the opening Jenna scene, And our take on it was, which I'm assuming was yours, but I'd be curious.
This would be great if
was
we completely disagree.
Well, that they waited until
Very
she was
excited.
home. You know, they're staging a scene to
Yes.
feel like the Drew Barrymore
Yes,
scene.
they
so that's how we rationalize all of it.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing that, you know.
We're paying homage, but so are they.
So
Yeah.
are they within the movie, so it allows us to do those things.
Yeah.
You really should have listened to Dewey.
A lot of people just laying
A
on
lot
the
of people,
floor.
again, like this was, I mean, I credit to you guys. I think this works, but it's this is a really tough scene to stage.
Yeah, it's just-
Five people,
There's a
by
lot
the
of
way,
work.
two people keeping two people keeping three people hostage. Even I get confused.
Yeah,
So
it's
like,
a big
well, why
with
don't they
one
rush
gun
them
and one
with
knife.
One gun and one knife, and,
Yeah.
and then, you know,
It's tough.
the gun turns into a knife later because Jack's not used. Like, there's just so many
Right.
moving parts to.
Jack jumping at that.
Yeah.
There are a ton of moving parts in the scene, and it was one that, again, it was, I think, a testament to the actors kind of clicking into it, that once that happened, we were able to be like, okay, cool, now we know how to do this.
I also always get a
Fan
kick out of
out.
Amber fan out. She's one person. How do you?
I was always wondering about that.
Yeah, I think I wrote it too. So I'm like, yeah.
But again, it's something a movie fan would
It's
say.
such an action movie
Amber
line.
fan out.
They don't even know what it means.
Yep. I love the crutch of death. That is just so.
Yes, it's so great.
So, and this bite, you guys came up. I just love his
Yeah,
reaction.
bite on
yeah,
the
sorry.
On
Well,
the
and that's
cut.
it. Doesn't Sydney bite Stu at the end of the...
Well, no, the thing goes in the bullet hole too. The umbrella.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
Exactly.
I love there's still umbrellas in the right place.
Yeah, we put the umbrellas there. That's really, really... We did that with Jenna and with her stunty.
Yeah.
This is when Jack was going full into Jack Torrance.
Jack Torrance.
Oh
yeah. I could tell. It's wonderful.
We should point out that this was written before COVID.
It was.
It was.
Sanitizer.
Yeah,
Hand
hand
sanitizer was
sanitizer.
written before COVID. So, but it did help.
Yes.
It helps a little bit.
What's flammable and in a kitchen?
Let me guess, the movies made
Yeah, who doesn't have a giant bottle of hand
Also, not for nothing, this was also written before Mikey Madsen was cast, who famously burns to death in Once Upon a
In
Time
Once
in
Upon a Time
Hollywood.
in Hollywood.
So it's like, we were like, well, I don't want to change it. We still want to set her on fire, but there's a little bit of kismet to it. And again, they really went for it, you know?
They really
They
did.
did.
Yeah, and
Thing about
And the-
slashers, Sam.
The cutting pattern on this was interesting because it's sort of the geography of, they're very close together in the house, but I think when you're in the movie,
Right.
it doesn't matter. You're in, okay, now we're with Sam and Richie, now we're with, you know.
Yeah, that your perception doesn't have to line up with the logic of.
Or at least that's what we hope.
That's what we hope.
that's what we all told ourselves.
Yes,
No, but
exactly.
I don't know how many versions of cross-cutting we tried with these two. These, like, what's happening in the kitchen and what's happening with Sam. I had probably 10 different intercuts.
So many.
You just kind of wanted to. I sort of feel like you just want to live in one of them and see it play out
Yeah.
to get the
Yeah,
catharsis.
it's
of
really
it.
well cut together, guys.
Yeah. Michelle
Yeah,
too.
Michelle.
Michelle's so
Michelle-
good.
Michelle Aller.
This was another moment where there were so many guns in play in this final sequence. We wanted to make sure that it was Dewey's gun.
Dewey's gun that kills her.
Yeah, that drives her into the stove.
I also, again, like, I
love
don't
that reaction.
want to put words in your mouth, but like, I remember you guys calling me and being like, you know, there is something about the moment where you're like, oh, we're really going to set someone on fire today in front of us. Like,
Yeah.
that's a real thing.
That would be the first time you guys have worked with
Real
fire in a person on fire like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Also, there were also conversations about the blood trails and does this blood trail go to that? And
Yep.
she's laid a false blood trail to lead him to that
Yep.
closet, and it all fell out ultimately because it just felt like it wasn't.
Yeah,
you know.
Slowing
there
the
were
movie
3
down.
doors up there, and it
Oh, yeah.
became a which door is she behind?
Yeah.
And also, yeah,
It felt a little similar to the Sid with the doors, so
This
it
I'm
was a good
worried.
cut.
That's such a dangerous fall.
Yeah. Billy number 3.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And here's a
It's the rule of 3 Billy Loomises in a movie.
But there's 4 total.
Ever
But there's
since,
4, yeah.
Well, we got to. It's a sequel, so you got to go more.
This was
You gotta go
weirdly.
one more.
This was the hardest, kind of the hardest scene to shoot. I think we spent more time in this foyer
You're right.
capturing this sequence than any.
Well, we went
than-
back to it like maybe
Yeah.
3 times.
Oh,
right?
interesting.
It was
Yeah.
just a deceivingly lot of little bits, you know, a lot of eye lines you had to cover, a lot of, you know, and then of course the
the
The 22 stabs
22
coming
stabs
up.
in the throat slit.
Never fuck with the daughter of a serial killer.
I think my favorite on-set moment here was when we decided to just be like, give him a moment of realization before
it
Yeah.
gets to.
Now the orgy of stabs.
I just also like I don't. Because it was you guys did this, like it was always like she stabs him a bunch, but it was never to this level, and it was kind of like, well, yeah, we just used all of them, like.
Yeah, we did.
And it's so, once I saw it, I was just like, this is amazing.
This is perfect.
And again, it was protect this moment at all costs.
Yeah.
Like
It
I don't
didn't
think we
change
cut
much.
one
no, it
out.
didn't.
Yeah,
no,
we
Tyler,
never-
It
I remember
hasn't.
Tyler, like in a parking lot, we was like, I will fucking burn it all down before I cut one of these stabs.
we never. We
Beautiful.
kept saying it was one of those like play the game and say, yeah, we'll look at that.
Yeah, we'll take a look. We'll take a look at that. But it was like that was
They needed to be in there.
And that shot of just the knife, that's a direct homage to the original when Skeet has the knife over at the last minute before he gets shot.
Nice.
And yeah, that was always the conversation of what have Gail and Sydney been up to.
For the last 5 minutes.
Right.
They've been hanging out in the kitchen.
Microwaving some popcorn, roasting some hot dogs over Amber's
So how are the
body.
kids?
Yeah, I'm very curious what my wife's going to say when she sees that she's set on fire. That's going to be an interesting.
And shot in
And
the head.
this coming up.
Well, yeah, that's
Yep. Brains.
Real gross. Real gross.
How excited was Jack when he saw this?
Oh, thrilled.
Just the amount of violence. There we go.
Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, Freddy Krueger, you're right. That was Rick Poor and his crew.
I still prefer the Babadook.
I mean, that Babadook setup from 2 hours ago.
Listen, there's it's like a Schwarzenegger line, right?
I love it so much. And Jenna it's so convincing.
Yep.
You believe it. I love this moment between them.
Yep. And Jenna's upcoming line reading of, "Can we go to a different house?"
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's the right volume. It's the right tone. It's so amazing.
This was also, I remember, because we wanted to shoot it at sunrise, like, and there was a whole lighting issue, so it was sort of this.
Apparently, it cost like $250,000 to shoot
during
it.
daytime.
Yes.
I think William was finally like, guys, it's gonna still be night, and we're gonna save the $250,000.
We also weren't the first to try to achieve that look and run into that same problem. I mean, the Halloween movie before, Halloween 2018,
Yeah.
wanted to do a big daylight scene in the same stage, couldn't pull it off. Or was it Kills?
No, it was
There
Kills.
supposed to be a
Kills.
sequence
I was
in
gonna be like,
Kills.
is that sort of
Yes.
would ruin Kills
There was
entirely?
There was supposed to be a
This morning.
sequence in Kills. Yeah, and it's massive stage.
Yeah. Magical blankets.
The magical blankets, there they
yes.
are.
Was it Ron Lynch who was talking about?
Yeah, that was
So I
kind
guess
of, it was the
that
big
heal
joke.
those blankets
Yeah.
heal a gunshot wound and a stab wound, huh?
I remember talking about though how to stage this, and it just felt so weird to have Gail in a stretcher.
Nah,
for
yeah,
this, for
yeah.
this
Oh yeah, it would have been
scene.
been
to-
unintentionally funny.
Yeah. exactly. You wanted them to really be able to lock in on each other.
We would go to this stage on like the weekends and just kind of walk through the scenes, just us and Brett, and kind of figure out like what our version was before we talked to the actors. And that was the one where we were like, she can't just be in a ambulance on a stretcher. Like,
Put her in a magical blanket.
You want to, you want to
You
see
could
that
have
they're
had
okay.
like an
You wanna-
oxygen mask on her, so you can't really hear her.
I think I'm gonna write a book, but it's not gonna be about these.
But it's like the emotion is more important than the, it's
Exactly.
like you sort of like, especially in these movies, it's like it's okay to choose the emotion of over the reality
100% agree.
sometimes.
And they all really bring that emotion to this scene.
I will say, just to sort of say it too, that all the way through this process, I cannot count the number of times that the five of us have turned to each other and gone, "Holy shit, we're making a Scream movie!"
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and it was like
Wow.
it kept like levels upon levels upon. It's like
I mean,
We're
guys,
still doing it.
We're doing
I
a commentary.
just-
for
I know, I
Scream
can't.
movie
I can't believe we made a Scream movie. Do you remember the one time we tried that without Billy in the reflection,
Yes.
and it was just like Sam looking at
black
herself in the
boy.
hood of the
Right.
car?
Yeah.
I was like, no.
Well, and in the original version, right, she took another pill, and then we
Yeah.
all decided that the change should be she's just handling it. She doesn't.
She's just it's just
Yeah,
sort of
she's acceptance.
she's accepted of who she is and where she is.
Yeah.
Um,
Regional.
This was the last shot. Kevin was on set again for this, and I think we did this like maybe 11 times.
Yeah, and this was we had it all planned out on the techno crane, and on the day realized that we didn't have enough space on the stage to get high enough. So we ended up, it was just totally serendipitous the way the house was positioned on the stage. We opened the stage door and we were able to get the dolly and the crane an extra 40 feet out and
Also
achieve the shot.
Really quick shout out to Millie here, who's our reporter, who improv'd all of this.
Oh, wow,
we
she's
gave her
great.
nothing. She did it all. And also the VFX on that house.
There was one
Yeah,
version
there's only half the house.
where Gail.
Yes.
That started before Gail was taken away,
Yeah.
and she's like amateur.
So there's a
For Wes.
there's a bird sound on the For Wes that Karen, our sound
A
designer,
whippoorwill.
a whippoorwill, yeah, that he had talked about in an interview that reminded him of growing up in Ohio, and it was her idea to put it over there. So that's why there's a
that's
little
lovely.
whippoorwill sound.
That's so great. And then
Salem.
So we found this on a text chain because we couldn't.
is-
right.
Yeah,
It's like you, Matt. You knew.
Well, so what happened?
We
yeah,
couldn't find a closing song.
Right, we were like, I mean, this is May, right? We'd been editing for like
Yes.
5-6 months, and we couldn't find an end song. And then I randomly was texting with my friends Joey and Aaron from the band I used to be in, and they're friends with these guys, and sent them to me saying, hey, you like them. And I started listening and was like, oh, I love them.
Yeah.
And also this song, guys, and I sent it out to you guys literally like 4 minutes later, being like, take a listen.
At like 10:30 at night.
Yes,
by the way. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, if not later. And
Yeah.
then, we tried it and we kind of went back and forth, and then ultimately they re-recorded it for us for the movie with, and so they re-recorded that with Carly Hansen. And so they re-recorded it with her, and because we really wanted to have a duet. We wanted it to not feel like it was representing just one voice, and
And the energy of this was the big challenge. We tried so many things that
Yes.
just felt like they sort of end the movie on this down note, and we love that you have a little bit of this kind of romantic anthem that like kicks into a
it's like
hard,
kind of bittersweet, right?
yeah,
And
hard
it's a
kind of goth
celebration.
rock, yeah.
And a celebration of all these, also doing these credits the way that Wes used to do them too.
Exactly.
Sort of the everybody happy,
We had a good time. And also, I mean, I know we've all talked about this a ton. We're all fans. I know you guys used to have a list of songs with the movie title in the name.
Yes.
And so, when they re-recorded it for us, they inserted the word Scream into it.
Yep.
And, if you go listen to the rest of the soundtrack too, it's worth pointing out that there's a lot of like references to ghosts and stuff like that, and Scream. And we spent a lot of time on the soundtrack. I think that was really a fun part of the process.
Yeah. And just to say it musically too, Brian Tyler,
Yeah.
whose stuff you hear
He's a
throughout
wizard.
this.
So great.
So incredible. And then this goes from Salem into the Wallows.
The Wallows. This is
Dylan's band.
And this is another one. We talked to Dylan. We were like, we'd love to get you guys in the movie. And we kind of tried them a few times in the movie, and they never quite fit exactly what we wanted. And then they gave us this song off their new album, and we popped it in, and we're like, oh, this is a perfect
You're like,
song
there we
for,
go.
for all.
Movie, Randy. I love that you get Chelsea and James in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well-
film fails.
We should also just say that, the other person who should have been here is William Sherrick.
Yes.
Shout out to William Sherrick.
Shout out to William Sherrick, who currently is in Winnipeg with Melissa Barrera.
That's right.
Making another movie.
Shooting bed rest.
Shooting bed rest. So shout out to both of them. They are probably very cold right now.
And also everybody's name on this. I mean, everybody played such a big part in this movie. This really did feel, I know you hear it all the time, like war and family, but doing this during COVID, it was just a whole other level of people coming together and kind of working together to make something. And I think everybody here really gave it their all.
I think also just to sort of say it about William and you guys and the actors, this was not like because of COVID, you literally would shoot the movie and then go back to the hotel, which you all lived in, which
Yeah.
never happens. People get their own apartments, stuff like that, and would congregate downstairs in one of the sort of the
conference room.
conference rooms that sort of the production rented out, and so it was really like summer camp in a crazy way. 'Cause
We called it
nobody-
Camp Sherrick.
Camp Sherrick.
Yeah. And it was, and William stocked it with a pool table, ping pong, a dartboard I think we used twice.
Beanbag chairs.
We would have game nights all the time, and just kind of, you just could go down there and see who was there and hang out for a bit, and it was
Yeah, it was a real
really
silver
great,
lining in a really difficult time.
And I think that family sort of feeling kind of resonates through the movie, at least for me when I watch it.
Yeah.
Final thoughts, gents?
Still surreal.
Yeah, we made a Scream movie.
Can't believe it. What's that about?
Scream movie, you know. And I mean, honestly, I feel like we could do a whole nother one of these and just talk about the influence that Wes Craven was to all of us individually and collectively. And it's just, I think we're all still pinching ourselves, right?
Yeah.
There's, can't go without talking about the VFX now that we're on them. Andre, every day out there with his silver ball, getting shit from cast.
Yeah, how many knives? How many
all of
knives
us, and
are VFX, and you just can't tell the difference between
they all did
what's
great.
a practical prop.
Skip Kimball doing the
that was an interesting challenge. I think we were prepared intellectually for, but what knife to use when? What's going to be VFX? What's going to be real? How do you do it safe? How do you make the action look as intense as possible?
Well, because
they really helped us out.
The secret sort of these movies a little bit is they're kind of action movies.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it's they're horror absolutely, but like there's so much running and stabbing and punching and kicking. You know what I mean? Compared to sort of your average sort of horror movie. So
much. We should shout out James and Lewis did a song for us. They did the song "Fall in Love" that we've used them. They did the score for Southbound for us, and they did the Ready or Not
hide and seek song.
By the way, everybody in the special thanks I think are voices in
correct in the West.
In the two West, yeah.
In the two West.
I still can't believe you got Dawson's Creek.
I mean, it's pretty what a very expensive joke.
What a very expensive joke.
Very expensive joke.
Worth every penny.
Absolutely.
Well, love you guys.
Love you guys.
I can't believe we got to make a
Amazing.
Scream movie. I think the reason we're still talking about it is because it was such an incredible experience, and we don't want to let it go.
I know. No, let's go do another one.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Fingers crossed.
We're all winking at each other.
So much winking.